meeting, Monday, August 22nd, 2022. So, and I always forget to do this. For all you that have cell phones or other communication device, will you please put them on silent? And at this time, I would like everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands,
one nation,
under God,
indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If anybody would like a copy of tonight's agenda, they're back on the table. And for viewing public, you can go to RRPS, rockridgepublicschools.org, look under district information and school board and board book, and you can follow along. This time I will do roll call. Stacy.
Present.
Randy.
Here.
Holly.
Here.
Matt.
Here.
Tom.
Here.
Tim. We have 6 present, and Nicole, John, and Bill are all absent. Called in that they would not make tonight's meeting. We're looking at approval of, before I go there, we have a couple additions and some corrections to the agenda before we approve it. We have 3 late additions, therefore they will go under the consent agenda. It is 4-39, 40, and 41, and we have the paperwork for those. The other one is under reports. We'll go 5.2.A. Cassandra Haney will be given a report. And the only other thing, with the permission of the board, I would like to move 6.1, consider of the approval of lease agreement between Rock Ridge and Orthopedic Associates, to right after the consent agenda. So if I could have a motion to accept the agenda with.
I have some additions and deletions.
Okay, what are you looking for?
Would like to add just a discussion of the marketing of the Gilbert and Evworth buildings.
Where would you propose that would be?
Wherever he wants to.
We will put that at,
Do I have a second?
we'll put it under administration, and we'll put it under 12.
Does she need a second for that, Tim?
Yeah, I do.
I'll second.
So I have a motion to add marketing for, did you say Gilbert?
Well, yeah, Gilbert and Evworth.
The Evworth and Gilbert buildings. Motion by Polly, second.
Should we also include the Virginia building?
Well, marketing, we're not selling any of those, unless you're talking about the,
Let's leave it at those 2 tonight. Or if you want to,
Leave it at those.
so we have marketing for the Evworth and Gilbert campuses. We have a motion by Polly, second by Brandy. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Opposed?
Aye.
Nay. So it goes 2.
and I would move to delete 6.1. and instead schedule a working session on that whole lease. there's so much there. We haven't really discussed it. It's on the agenda to consider approval today, and I think it really deserves more discussion.
I'll support that.
Motion to delete 6.1. Motion by Polly, second by Matt. Is there any discussion?
For discussion at a working session, is that what you're looking for, Polly?
I said
a
a working session. Yeah.
I didn't hear that part.
I guess I'd just like to throw in, we did have them come and discuss with us and present to us earlier this year.
I guess I just remember when I was looking over the lease as well, I was remembering Matt bringing up the length of time for that lease. Because if I was reading correctly, it was a 20-year lease with a possible extension of 5 years, if I'm correct. And I know that Matt had brought up, is that something that we can negotiate? There was concern about that. So, and I don't remember any more discussion after that.
Yep.
A lot of, and, I talked with Dr. Schmidt this afternoon. I mean, I do have a lot of questions and, pertaining to, whether we can do that.
Well, both of our attorneys have worked on this, and it is permissible according to them.
And I did request to see that in writing a month ago and haven't seen anything. I'm with Polly that I think there's a lot of questions that.
There's too much to the whole agreement to just, and their presentation was very cursory. It, wasn't as detailed as this.
Is there any repercussions for having, putting it off and having a work session to discuss it and maybe inviting them to have a conversation with us further on it?
They are there tonight.
They are here tonight. A representative is here tonight. I would suggest to the board at least hear the presentation, and after that you can decide if you want to have a work study session about it.
Well, there's a motion and a second to.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion?
I would just like to add that this is one of the goals of our academy style learning, is to incorporate this with what we're doing. And so I would feel terrible if we have this representative here after they've already been presented, and then we're going to go back and say, we're not going to discuss this now, we'll discuss it later, when this is the whole goal of our academy style learning.
I agree with that. I would like to hear what they have to say as well.
And it's not the idea of the whole thing that's the question or the problem, not the problem, but at this point, it's the details of the contract, that's all.
Well, I think we can at least hear out what she has to say instead of taking it off the agenda totally.
Correct.
And
So is there any other discussion? All those in favor of polling 6.1 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
That would be Matt and Polly. All those opposed signify by saying aye.
Aye.
So we have Stacy, Brandy, Tom, and Tim. Motion fails. That will remain on the agenda. Okay. So we've made a couple changes. I know you made a motion, Stacy, to approve it as changed. Is there a second? Support by Tom. Is there any discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
So it's 5-1. Director Sorkin, no. recognition of visitors and visitors' input. I received something this afternoon when I got home it was sent at 3:30, so I'll use that. Our agenda goes online approximately Friday afternoon at 2 o'clock. People have 72 hours to ask to be on the agenda, and this one individual, I told her not tonight. If people give us plenty of time so that we can have a discussion about it, I have no problem with adding people on under visitors' input. So I just thought I would say that.
Mr. Reardon, can I interrupt for a second?
No, you may not. I apologize.
All summer to talk about this topic, and the whole entire school board knows.
Ma'am,
and just one
ma'am,
thing,
you're
and
out of
I
order. Will you
submitted-
please sit down? Thank you.
I also submitted it within 24 hours of the school board online, and I forwarded the picture that I took. So denying the public.
So we're looking at
I have a question.
we're looking at the consent agenda now?
I have a question about visitor input.
Yes.
Was that request for an agenda item to be added, or was that a visitor input?
That was a visitor input.
And was it a visitor input request on an agenda item?
Yes.
Okay. And what does our policy say about, we've had people come here just before the board meeting and tell the chair or the superintendent they'd like to be under visitor input on an agenda item, and we've.
Holly, I told her no. I made the decision, and
Is there a time limit? Is there a 72-hour time limit, or what?
it's a practical. It's about being punctual. 72 hours, they know what's on the agenda, and then at 3:30, I get it. I get home at 4 o'clock, and I have a request, and our special meeting starts in a half hour. And I told her, no at this time.
But have we let people come?
I have not. I have not.
And we haven't. What does our policy say? Could you tell me what our?
I think our chair has spoken, if we could just move it along.
Yes,
What our policy says
If
about
my
that.
online request was not,
I would like someone to make a motion on the consent
I will
agenda.
move that we accept the consent agenda as presented.
We have a motion by Director Schultz.
My support.
Support by Director Tamaro. Is there any discussion?
I just had a question on 4.10 on the licensed school social worker. I went online and looked at her license through MDE, et cetera. Has she applied for the school social worker license? Do you know, Noel?
I do not know, but we are recommending that we hire her pending contingency about her ability to get that.
And I know it should be pretty easy for her to obtain that
Yes,
as well.
Typically, MD is behind at this time because they're getting so many applications for licensure right now.
Okay.
And I'm glad you asked that, because I had a question about that too. So without requesting to pull any items, I would just ask a question like you did too, Brandy. Did we have any fully licensed people that applied for the job or were interviewed?
No,
So she was the only applicant and the only one interviewed?
she was the only qualified applicant.
And what do you mean by qualified? Without a license, what do you mean by qualified?
But she's licensed. She's licensed as a social worker,
I see that.
but MDE license is for a short call substitute. It's not for, she doesn't have school social work on that licensure. It's pretty easy to get. I was just inquiring on whether or not she was applying for that.
But did anybody else have the, already approved the MDE licensure approval?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay. Do you know how many applicants we had?
As I'm sitting here, no.
All right. And the other questions I had about the consent agenda was, looks like we have 7 resignations of paraeducators, and it looks like we have 8 hires. It's kind of not balanced as far as how many we have, how many we need. how many we're hiring and how many that are resigning. Do we have an extra one there or not?
This is the time of year where typically members of the board, we hear from paras who are not coming back. We're hearing from paras who are moving on, they've taken other jobs. So what you're seeing in front of you is actually normal this time of year. And on the old Evworth Gilbert side, I need to say this, there were fewer paras, but they were full-time paras. On the old Virginia side of the equation, there were more paras, but there were no full-time paras. So what you're seeing is kind of normal. Typically, this is when they tell us they're not coming back. And typically, this is also the time of year where now that the principals know who's not coming back, they are doing interviews and they are making recommendations, which is why you're seeing what you're seeing here tonight.
Yeah, I've noticed all summer long that we've had resignations and been approving paras. So, matter of fact, I saw one who resigned in June and then pulled his resignation at our last meeting, so.
7 resignations, but then we're hiring 8. We need that 8th one somewhere?
You can't really pay attention to the numbers at any one given board meeting because it doesn't work out evenly at every board member. That 5 resign, and then we're going to hire 5 at the same time. So it's over the course of multiple months, it all equals out based upon the number of paras that we're actually hiring for this year. So I won't read too much into the discrepancy.
The balance.
Okay,
Because at every meeting, we're looking at resignations and hires.
are we still in need for more paras? Do you know?
They are still looking for paras, yes, because it would not surprise me if we don't get some additional resignations from paras letting us know they're not coming back. That also is kind of normal this time.
And those would just be replacement paras, not in addition to paras that we need.
Yes, the
And we
total.
may need extra paras as we get into the school.
Depending upon who we get and what their IEP says, yes.
And another question is, on 36, the approval of substance abuse prevention grant leader, that's for the 21-22 school year, and that's over. It looks like we're doing something after the fact.
You are. And the reason for that is that the one about Samantha?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yep. What happened is there were 2 people who were doing that job. One person got $4,000. She was paid $2,000 because of how the grant worked. And so the reason why she's coming up is that they both did the same work. So the principals feel they both should get the same money. So it's coming from the grant, a different format. And I really wanted a principal here tonight. It just didn't work out to explain it. But it's not extra money that she's making. It is equal to what the other person who is doing that role made.
Okay, so if she got $2,000, it's going to be $4,000 in total, and she'll get another $2,000.
Just equalizing
Okay.
between the campuses, yeah.
Just to
So
understand
the
all that.
total is the same.
All right, those are the only questions I have.
Very good.
Oh, one more. Number 3, is that technology specialist level 1, is that an additional position, or are we replacing somebody?
That is a replacement. It is not
Okay.
an additional person.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, so we have a motion by Stacy, second by Tom, to approve the consent agenda as presented. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain?
Have 5 yes, with Director Sorkin voting no.
Abstain.
Oh, you abstain, I'm sorry. Abstain. 501, thank you. Okay. We're going to go 5.0. We're going to have Orthopedic Associates give us a presentation. And you can go up to the podium here, that would be great. Or more than like answer questions.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wasn't really ready.
Yeah, we're not going to dump a presentation on you.
I'm going to just do a little introduction for the board to set the stage of why she is here again for Orthopedics Associates. This is a topic that came before the board, oh geez, a year ago.
Yeah.
Or so, and it was just, here's what we're thinking, here's what could happen. It was an FYI at that point in time. Since that time, our lawyer, Trevor, and the OA Associates have been going back and forth on what a contract, if this did happen, what it looked like. Because at that time, there was no contract, there was nothing for you to look at. It was just a possibility of something like this happening. So what you are seeing before you is the work of two attorneys from two different organizations, yours, and then Orthopedic Associates, going back and forth to come up with a lease agreement that worked for both organizations. The lease you have in front of you, 6 months. The attorneys have been going back and forth with multiple variations and iterations of it. And Director Solberg, I will get the document you're asking for, which is, does the school board have the legal authority to enter into this agreement? Trevor is saying clearly, yes, you do. I'll be the first person to admit that what you're looking at is out of the box. It's not even in the box.
Groundbreaking.
The box is completely gone. And the only reason this is even coming to you is we are designing a very specific career academy. This is not a normal high school. And we certainly realize, all of us, that once the building is built, we need to deliver to the community, to the parents, and to the kids who are expecting us to deliver on a career academy. They're not expecting to walk through the doors and go to a normal high school where everything happens as they're used to. So we have to deliver. To that end, we started talking with Orthopedics Associates 2.5 years ago. It's been a while. It's been a while. About this concept, and then talking back and forth how it might work. And the gist of it is that they would, I'll let Vanya speak for Orthopedic Associates, but the gist of it, yep, they would remodel about 25% of this building, their cost. Yep, they would use it, and they would operate it as a regular, full-blown functioning clinic. Yep, they absolutely would do that. Yes, would they have patients coming up here? Absolutely. They absolutely would have patients coming up here. Do they have parking spaces for their patients? Yes, absolutely. We have enough parking spaces that we can leave them there. That's not why you should consider doing this. The reason why we would consider doing it, the only reason it's coming to you, is because it gives us, for kids who are in the healthcare academy, and I know you've seen the data multiple times about the fact that long-term, and I know mining gets a lot of traction here, and I know it gets a lot of publicity. The reality is that 50% of all the jobs on the range are in healthcare. That's the big driver of jobs up here. That's where the jobs really are, the volume, and there's a lot of well-paying jobs within the healthcare field. That's the reality of the situation. So to have them here is unique because we're not even talking here. I'm not standing here. She's not standing here unless they are not interested in actually delivering. This is unheard of for a business to even be standing up here. This is absolutely unbelievable that a business is saying we want to do this. We actually want to work with your kids. We want you to bring them over. We want you to have them come into the room. We want you to see how the records work, see how the physical therapy works, see how the OT works, see what happens when a patient comes in, what actually happens. The upshot of this is that a kid who is in our healthcare career academy and once is thinking they want to be in healthcare, and I do realize, I'll be the first one to admit, there's a lot of jobs in healthcare, and far more than what OA offers, but they have a good smattering of it. And I did go to all the major health organizations, and I told you this, but I think it bears repeating. I talked to every single one of them. I sat down right across the table. I looked them in the eye and I said, here's what we're thinking. Would you be interested in doing anything on a clinic? I got good responses, but there's only one who actually said, yes, on site there, I want to put a clinic. I want to work with you. And that was OA. Everyone else had an opportunity. Now, that said, we're still going to do a lot of things with the other healthcares, especially Essentia. They've stepped forward. You've heard what they're willing to. Fantastic partner for us, but we cannot have enough partners in this area because of the volume. So we're only here because of that. What will this mean for the average typical kid? And then I'll stop talking and you can hear directly from OA. The average kid who's in the healthcare academy, they will get approximately 20 hours of direct contact with someone from OA staff or someone working PTOT from the 9th through the 12th grade year. 20 hours, the average typical kid. Currently, they're getting 0 or maybe 1. Maybe somebody comes in and talks in the building to the kids. This is a huge difference. After 20 hours of direct contact, will our kids in the healthcare academy have a better idea if this is something they want to go into or not? You answer that question in your head, whether you think 20 hours would be helpful or not. So I'm going to stop right there and let Vanya tell you about from Orthopedics Associates side.
Okay, thank you.
I'm going to interrupt for one.
Absolutely.
This is an item that says consider approval, so
I'll make that motion that we approve the contract between the.
so we have a motion by Stacy and support by Tom.
Any discussion first?
Well, then we can.
Well, we'll have discussion now,
Okay.
and we'll open the floor up and.
Sure. I can just give an overview. I think it's my 4th time coming and kind of rolling out what we want to do. The lease that you see, the attorneys for the school are the ones that started the lease. I can tell you because I was part of the negotiation the whole time. Our attorneys had probably 10 things on the list to say, is this in your best interest? Do you want to relook at this? And I can tell you there was only one thing that we changed on that lease from the original that it was sent was the arbitration language, which was at the end of the 20 years, and we wanted to continue, and we would do a 5-year lease. We would negotiate with the school board a marketable lease amount. If we could not come to terms with a marketable lease amount that was agreeable to both parties, we would have an arbitrator come in. That is really the only thing that is added on that lease from the original lease that I was given from your attorneys. Someone said about the 20-year lease. Yeah. We did, so how we looked at that is what our market rent is in this area right now. On our proposal, we expected to put a clinic here. It would be about 1.5 million. We're up to 1.9 already. And you know how that goes. It just ticks up. We are absorbing all of that. We're not asking for any more than 20 years. We're fine with that. But that's how we came to that number.
Yeah. So what is the market rent for a business?
About $6,000 a month.
Oh, I think I saw that somewhere.
I think that, again, the idea of what we can do partnering with the students, we are super excited about it. We have, as I said in proposals before, it's not just looking and shadowing an orthopedic surgeon. There is coding and x-ray tech. And I mean, there is a barrage, and that's what makes us unique is we are independent, so we can expose the kids to all of those. It's not just what it's like to be a nurse and what it's like to be a physician. we hope when we talked about what the goal was, is for somebody, for a student to say, I want to be an X-ray tech. And before they go to school and they realize this is not what I wanted to be, we expose them to that career. This is what it would be. And so they come out just so much more educated on maybe where they want to go once they become an adult. I think one thing that makes us very unique, and I was an Essentia employee for 18 years. Essentia is a wonderful company, but I think what makes us unique is the ability to pivot based on the school board and what they're seeing. I know that this is new for you as well. And so as the school year goes and we start looking at what we've committed to, which is 200 hours per school year, we can pivot, we can turn and we say, this is what we've learned. Maybe we should try this. We have the ability to do that I don't think a big system does. I just don't. We've already incurred thousands and thousands of dollars today working with the architect because we have picked kind of a June 1st opening for us so we can get all settled and get ready for the students in the fall of 2023. So I get discussion and all of that, but I'm getting a little bit nervous about continuing to meet with the architects every week. They're fabulous. KA is fabulous, but like I said, we're already up to 1.9 million. So we would love to have the lease approved tonight. We really would. So we could all just partner.
So what happens if that clinic isn't lucrative for orthopedic associates for the 20 years? And what if they have to close their doors for some reason? What is your responsibility then to the school district?
I think that what we could look at is history, and we've been in this community for over 30 years. Dr. Hendricks has been here. And so we don't look at that happening. We built a Hibbing clinic 4 years ago, and we're mirroring that clinic like we would here at Rockridge. Recruitment efforts, I have 2 candidates right now. My priority is to have them working up here at Rockridge. Orthopedic Associates has been in business for 51 years. The range is where we have a lot of focus, a lot of compassion for the area. We couldn't all work in Duluth, and nor would we want to.
Good.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Pretty dedicated. Yeah.
I guess I have, as I voiced, I think it was in the fall or the winter when we saw the first presentation, some concerns and primarily it's that we're giving the space away. We're giving away a quarter roughly of the building, or it's less than that. It's 20% or so of a building that we purchased along with the land 3 years ago. And at the time this building was purchased, we were told that the building was in such poor shape that we were going to demolish it, and now we're committing for 20 years to the building. And I just think that would be a mistake. I understand, and this is, certainly Orthopedic Associates is a great organization. They did a great job with my wife's hip a couple of years ago. But I think the reluctance from some of the larger, more robust providers in the region is they've already invested a lot of money in real estate in this market. They don't need any more real estate. And that is a bit of a concern of mine that, how do they feel, or and I get it, it's competition, congratulations. But I think that's the real reason why they aren't interested in coming here, because they have their clinics.
Well, in talking to what you said, I just drove up from Minneapolis and I drove by 2 new Essentia healthcare system facilities in smaller towns. So, and they just put how many billions into Duluth. The thing that I see with them is they're in the Virginia Evworth area. They're in
Inhibiting.
Fairview, they're in the Laurentian, they're in the Virginia Hospital, and they'd be consolidating that here. So focusing in where people don't have, and I go to them, and I have to always write down or put on my phone, which clinic is the doctor at that day. So it makes it easier for them, is what I look at. And I might be wrong, but your presentation when Dr. Hendricks was here and you spoke, all the different positions you said like it was in the 60s, because you're talking different coders, you have nurses, you have receptionists, you have RNs, you have LPNs, you have PAs. So it would give our students, as Dr. Schmidt said, that think they want to go into healthcare. Is this a good fit for me? So.
And we currently have a contract too with you for our athletic trainers, right?
Yep. This is year 2. So Brad Curran, I don't know.
Everybody knows Brad.
Yeah.
Right, before I need to go out of my way, that is completely independent.
Yes.
of anything you decide here, the athletic training component.
But it does show the commitment to the community. It does.
So I have a question about the 20 hours of direct contact. That's per student per year?
In the lease, it says 200 hours for the school year. And it would,
So how many students, I'm asking?
You're referring to the math I did.
Well, I'm asking how many students per year? If it's 20 hours of direct contact, how many kids is that per year? So is that 10 kids, the 200 hours a year for 10 students?
I think if you did, how I read the lease, which I think that Noel confirmed with me, if we were going to do a classroom, so we had 10 students in there, and we did a classroom for 1 hour, it would equate to 10 hours, is how I was reading the lease. And again, this is up to, you have your director of curriculum in place, correct?
Well, yes.
Okay,
Yes,
so
we
this
do.
would be part of our partnership to see what that would look like.
That's kind of what I
Trying to get at
had in my head too.
I'm just trying to get a feeling for how many students this is really going to affect.
I don't think we'll really know that until we know like how many kids are going into the healthcare academy path.
If it's only 200 hours, then we're limited on how many students can
I
get.
don't think that's the cap. I think that's the minimum.
Minimum,
200 hours per school year, that's a minimum?
minimum,
Okay.
it is.
I didn't read it to say no more than 200 hours. And I think that gives us some flexibility. I guess I'm sorry, Dr. Schmidt, but
No, go ahead, Director.
I just wanted to say, I actually cannot believe that we've got OA standing here saying, we want to do this. We want to get high school kids into our business and in some kind of a partnership, which is exactly what we have come together for, to do this academy style of learning, to get kids hands-on experience. And here we've got a business, a profitable business who's been around for quite some time, saying, yeah, we want to take these students in and with our business part, our coding, our x-rays, our OTs, our PTs, we want to invite your students in and work with them. I just don't want to waste any more time by, jamming up their investment into architects. We've had the attorneys look at it. I guess if our attorney is saying, this is what is coming to the board, I'm comfortable believing in what Trevor has to say. I think this encapsulates our vision of career academies, and I think it would be foolish to not adopt this tonight.
And I had specific questions regarding that were posed, at least 3 weeks ago, and was promised that before this came to us, we would see that in writing, and we haven't.
Well, I guess I don't know what you're referring to because I didn't need.
You mean saying that it's a.
Right, that it's okay to use bonding money to buy a facility and then give a chunk of it away, in essence.
And to answer both questions, they're going to spend $1.9 million on remodeling, and when they leave, we inherit a up-to-date quarter of this building that could be used for classrooms or whatever we want. And Noel and Trevor wouldn't ask us to present this to the board if they had any inkling that it wasn't legal. So that, I put my basis in that.
And yes, they're making a significant investment in our facility, but the bottom line is we use bonding money to acquire this facility, and we're literally giving it away for 20 years. That's giving it away, I think, in terms of real estate. And we're committing that we're going to keep this building operating and functioning for those 20 years.
Now, members of the board, in defense of Director Solberg, he did ask for this, and we will get that to the board. I have spoken to Trevor. Trevor says, yes, you as a school board can do that. I have no reason to tell you otherwise than that. I'm just relaying to you, this is what your attorney, Trevor, said as far as this agreement. He's the lawyer who was working on this document over the past 6 months.
And I just want to respond to a couple of Stacy's comments is, first of all, it's not the program and it's not Orthopedic Associates that's even in question here. To me, it's the terms of the agreement, the commitment of the school district, and what's really in the best interest for the school district. And we are financially culpable to our taxpayers. I don't care, our attorneys are not. We are fiduciaries, financially responsible for how we manage our school district money. And so that's a concern for me too. And, you know, just a lot of questions and things, and maybe just not ethical, but just practical things. If you're getting something rent-free for 20 years, you're certainly going to be making money during those 20 years in the building that you're getting rent-free. And I just had a question, the $6,000 a month that you estimate, or OA estimates that it costs them for, you know, the facilities, was that the 3 facilities or 1 facility that you talked about?
Per facility.
Per facility. And then how many square feet is that? Are you getting more square footage here than the $6,000 a month of expenses for the other facilities?
Yeah, I can't say each like the VRMC would be about the same square footage. They're different in each place depending on who else is in.
As this facility would be, the square footage. If it's 25% of this building, I don't know what the square footage is. And so I was trying to figure out how much per square foot this is, not just the expenses of $6,000 a month, because that's apples and oranges. And what is the market, you know, market rent for around here? That's the $6,000 probably isn't the actual market, typical average market rent in this area. You're just saying that that's what OA has spent on each facility per month up to this point. The news article said $5,000, but you figured out amortized over 20 years, it would be $6,000. And a lot of other things can change here too, you know, a lot of, well, whatever.
Don't you kind of look at that 25% of this building is being used as a classroom? We have 25% of this building that's going to be a practice room.
That's what I look at it.
And
yeah, and we spent $700,000 to remodel it.
And I remember Michelle Efford coming here and speaking too about how healthcare is the, you know, the business of, yeah, up here. And so I do see it as a classroom, and even bringing up the athletic trainers, I know that, I know kids that have become interested in being an athletic trainer because of our athletic trainers that have been here too. So I do see it as a classroom, and I got the information that I needed from you today, and I addressed what I remembered Director Schulberg mentioning as well. So I'm comfortable with making a vote today.
The thing I look at, we could sit around, and if all board members are here, we could have a list of questions that don't have answers, because this has never been done, and they're willing to step into this arena with us and give us something that only we have in the whole state, if not the whole country. And I think it would be a mistake for us to pass this up.
Again, I'd like to say it's not the program, it's not OA, it's the terms of the agreement. And I had another thought, I just lost it.
Is there any other?
I don't think, comparing this to building out space in this building for our purposes it's not comparing apples to apples.
It is comparing apples to apples. This would.
They're gonna use this space, they're gonna help us by using this space. We're getting compensation in kind, I get that. Renovating the space for use for our extracurricular programs, that's for us, no one else.
Well, we're going to share with them their space. Our students are going to share. They're going to be enlightened. It's their space, but our students are going to get something that the only way a PT student would get it would be to go down to Scholastica or some other facility or some other institution that gives it. We have a lot of, I think most of the questions have been answered.
I have a question. Did Trevor or any of our other attorneys specify that this agreement would serve the public purpose doctrine?
Yes, because that was one of the first questions I asked him, because that was one of the first questions this board asked, and he says yes. Now, you do have to get something in kind. You can't just give stuff away, but you are getting something in kind via your students.
So it's kind of unusual that a big decision like this would be made with almost half of our board members not here. If nothing else, that was one reason that I wanted to delete it and have a working session and then come back to the table with a full board. If we can, if and when we can, and on the Evworth Gilbert board, we did that sometimes, that it's too important of a decision to not have the full board there. So therefore, I will make a motion to table this.
We still have a motion on it.
And I would also like to say, in
Comes after.
January, we're going to be a 7-person board.
Well,
That's just an addition of one person, and we're going to have to make all these decisions as a 7-person board.
Well, now we're a 9-person.
yeah.
Well, the thing is,
True.
we can never guarantee that all 9 board members are going to be here. So we are the ones, everybody else knew about this.
No, we've done it in the past.
Well, okay, we've done lots of things in the past.
And Brandy, that even came from your.
We have someone that calls the motion.
No, tabling is a motion that you vote on first with a second, if there is a second before.
Second. She made a motion.
Give a chance to have a second. Is there a second?
She called the question.
Don't point at me.
Paul,
I'm asking, you didn't call for a second on my motion. Now call for a second on.
if somebody wanted to give it.
Director Reardon is running the meeting.
I'm asking.
She made a motion to call for the question. No, she.
I tabled it. I asked for a
I'll
motion to
second the
table.
motion to table.
Great.
That's. We already have a motion
No,
here.
you don't. You did it all wrong.
Here, we'll go through this. We have a motion to table by Paulie, second by Matt.
Right.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
We have Matt and Paulie. All those against tabling it?
Aye.
Aye.
So we have 4-2.
Okay, it's on the record.
So it's on record.
Now may I make a motion to call the question or just?
You don't have to, we just.
No,
Would you be quiet for 2 seconds?
thank you. I'm calling the question.
See?
You guys don't have to do it.
That's right.
All those in favor of approving the lease agreement with Orthopedic Associates of Duluth signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No.
So we have Matt and Paulie, and I will even go through a roll. Stacy?
Aye.
Tom?
Aye.
Matt?
Nay.
Paulie?
No.
Brandy?
Yes.
And Tim, it is a 4-2. And the motion passes. Sorry that
Thank you.
I hope you don't have a heart issue because,
Second thoughts.
thank you.
Excited to do this, we really are.
And we're excited, and I'm sure the other board members that have reservations are excited. It's just something new and.
As are the board members that have reservations at the table, welcome.
Thank you, I appreciate that.
Thank you.
Very much.
Thank you, everyone. Okay, that went there. We're now on to reports. Virginia Community Foundation. We have the executive director. Everyone received one of these folders.
Did you give one to Polly as well?
Yeah, Polly received, everyone did, and I gave Stacy for the other three board members that are not here tonight. And just relax, have fun. Okay.
I'm here briefly, just to give you a brief overview and history of the funds that are held at the Virginia Community Foundation. My name is Holly Lundgren. I'm the Executive Director of the Virginia Community Foundation, and I am thrilled to officially present to the Rockridge School District the two school funds held at the foundation. The Rockridge Education Fund, formerly known as the Virginia Education Fund, and the Wolverine Fund, formerly known as the Blue Pride Fund. I have worked with Willie Speltz and the foundation's attorney to update these funds to reflect the consolidation of the Virginia and the Evworth Gilbert school districts. The result is the administrative terms document that you have in your folder. And there is a lot more other information in there. It's detailed. I'm not going to get into that tonight. I will be available should you want to learn more about this and be educated about it. I won't present that tonight. So the foundation is supportive of the Rockridge Public Schools and is eager to foster a working relationship with the district. I'm just going to give you, as I said earlier, just a brief overview of the history and the general information about the funds. So the Blue Pride Fund was the first component fund of the Virginia Education, or the Virginia Community Foundation, and it was established in 2001 by community members who saw the need to supplement extracurricular activities at the high school level that were being cut due to budget constraints. Distributions from this fund, now known as the Wolverine Fund, will be used to provide support for co-curricular activities as defined by the Minnesota State High School League within ISD 2909. The Blue Pride Fund was established with $1,000, and as of July 31st, the Wolverine Fund is valued at over just $234,000. The Virginia Education Fund was established by community members in 2007 to support our school system and its students by providing grants for academic opportunities that were not covered through the normal budget process. Distributions from this fund, now known as the Rockridge Education Fund, will be used to provide support for enriching learning experiences, creating community connections to the classroom, enhancing available school resources, and to provide the best educational opportunities for all students within ISD 2909. This fund was opened with $12,850, and as of July 31st, the Rockridge Education Fund is valued at over $207,000. The funds are designated funds. This means the funds support a specific organization or charitable organization. Rockridge Education Fund and the Wolverine Fund support ISD 2909. The funds are endowed. Donations to the funds are deposited into the foundation's investment portfolio to be held in perpetuity, and only the investment returns are distributed. The foundation assesses a 1% management fee on endowed funds. Fees are assessed quarterly and are based on the previous quarter's monthly average fund balance. Wells Fargo is our asset manager, and they assess a monthly management fee, which is charged to each endowed fund based on its percentage of the foundation's total investment portfolio. Foundation recommends forming an advisory committee. As a designated fund, the school board would be that advisory committee, and I think you have more on your plate than needing to manage these two funds, and I am happy and more than willing to help and work with some group individuals within the school to develop this advisory fund. We recommend forming an advisory committee to promote the funds, and to evaluate and advise on grant recommendations. Each January, the foundation will inform the advisory committee the annual amounts available to grant for each fund. The foundation will provide the advisory committee with a quarterly statement, which would be April, July, October, and January, of the fund's activities. We at the foundation are very grateful for the generous donations from the community and the many who have given and continue to give through the district's employee and payroll deductions. The foundation, just a little history here, has awarded over $200,000 from the Virginia Education, the Blue Pride, and its unrestricted fund to the former ISD School District 706. And in May, the foundation awarded its first grant of $5,000 from the Wolverine Fund to the Aquatic Center Video Scoreboard. Thank you for allowing me this time. Foundation is excited for the future of education in our communities and looks forward to working with the district as our new schools open. I am available, and not tonight, at your convenience, to help develop and support this advisory committee and to answer any questions you may have. Thank you.
The one thing I'll add, we've had grants come through the board in the past year from the Virginia Community Foundation, and the advisory committee is the one that kind of looks at them in a whole, decides which one are good for the school district, and then why they come to us is because we should know everything that's going on. So we're the last barrier to approve what is happening, and that will still continue with the new Wolverine funds.
And the foundation will work with the advisory committee on using a machine, so there's no issues, and we can develop that relationship and move forward, and we're excited to work with you. Thank you.
Thanks, Holly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Holly. Item number 2, Dr. Keith Peterson from Essentia, Deep Winter Greenhouse presentation. He has waited literally months to be on here, and we came down with tonight would be the night. So
sounds good. Thanks for having me. I appreciate you guys giving me the time to talk. Did everyone get that little piece of paper, the information we put together? If not, I made some copies. If you don't have it, I'll just give it.
why don't you, if you have 6, pass them out.
Yeah. So my name is Keith Peterson. I am grew up here in Virginia. I have 2 kids in the school here, and my wife actually works as one of the school nurses, so graduated from Virginia High School right now. But I'm here on behalf of IRPS, as a local nonprofit. It stands for Iron Range Partnership for Sustainability. Been around for quite a few years now, but we do a lot of work with local foods. We sponsored the community gardens kind of in the area, put on Earth Fest and Pasty Fest, do a lot of work with the farmers markets. And a year or so ago, kind of introduced this idea of what's called a deep winter greenhouse. And as we talked more about that, and some of our board members actually toured one of the deep winter greenhouses in Bemidji, we thought it might be a good fit for the school, given the academy's model. There was also a recent study we did with help from IRRB that looked at the sort of the economic availability of agricultural jobs in our area. And we're not totally set up for agriculture in northern Minnesota, but there is a significant amount of agricultural jobs that could be produced or added in our area with the right incentives and background. So the deep winter greenhouse, just to give you kind of a little bit of an overview, it's a passive solar greenhouse. So the thing we like about it is that the monthly or yearly cost to run a deep winter greenhouse in northern Minnesota is a fraction, like 1/5 to 1/10 of a normal greenhouse. And for a lot of schools or for nonprofits, a regular greenhouse, like the one we have on North Side, is a beautiful greenhouse, but it's a significant cost to run and maintain, especially in northern Minnesota. So University of Minnesota has done a lot of work over the last 10 years, and the greenhouse has been around for 20 years or more. There's quite a few of them, one in Finland, another one over in Bemidji, a number of schools that have built deep winter greenhouses. But what they basically do is you create kind of an insulated box that has, the most recent version has river rock in there, and you have a fan and one wall that's south-facing with special glazing at a 60-degree angle, which allows for us to capture heat from the sun during the day. There's a fan that then pulls that heat down and pushes it through the rock underneath the ground that warms the rock up. The fans are set thermostats. They turn on and off depending on when you need the air to move. And then the temperature drops and the fans turn back on and it'll pull the heat from the ground back into the greenhouse. So the, again, is the cost savings to do something like that is huge. There's one a little bit farther south, down South Dakota, but to run it for a whole year, it costs them $130 for a whole year running a greenhouse. Hard to estimate exactly, what it would cost. There's some information in there, and there's a study put out by the University of Minnesota, and they looked at 8 different deep winter greenhouses across the upper Midwest. And the yearly cost to run them range anywhere from like $100 to $1,200 or so to run it for the year. So what we're thinking is that with the academy model, again, it would be a great opportunity for kids. We think of it almost as a laboratory for kids to be able to do hands-on learning, not only just growing, but we think about earth science classes and the ability to do experiments. Some schools use it as fundraisers, so they'll have their kindergartners go in there and plant flowers to give to their mom on Mother's Day, or they'll plant vegetables and then sell them later as a fundraiser. And a lot of the different schools have different gardening type clubs that students will run the greenhouse. So what we're ultimately proposing is we want to just get feedback and get ideas from you guys, but what we're proposing is trying to raise the money to build the greenhouse. We did do some background work. We met with the principals and met with Dr. Schmidt and met with Willie Speltz and with Todd Hallinan and a couple different people. And there is a site here on the campus that would be suitable to build this greenhouse. The footprint is 24 by 24, so not a huge building. And we'd build it so that it makes sure it fit with the overall style and a building that looked good and fit with the school grounds. The cost is a little bit difficult. We're a little bit behind the 8 ball because a lot of infrastructure has already been put in. But on the high end, we're estimating $70,000 to build, maybe $50,000. We worked with Michelle Alford before she moved on, and she had talked about one of the construction classes maybe doing some of the labor, but I know they have a number of other projects ahead of us. So it's a little bit difficult to know exactly what the cost would be, but IRPS, what we're offering is to contribute to raising the money to build the greenhouse. So it'd be somewhere between $50,000 to $70,000 likely over the course of the next couple of years. We do that through donations, and then there are a number of grants available through like Eunice Department of Agriculture to raise some of those funds. And then we'd also work hard. The other big piece of these greenhouses, as we've done reading and learned about them, is a curriculum piece. We need to find someone who's going to be willing to take this on. We've talked to a couple of science teachers. Some schools have actually a paid person who spends 10 hours or so a week managing the greenhouse and helping build curriculum. So that's another big piece of it that we've started to look into. And there's some stuff online already set up, but we need to kind of work on. So I think where we're at is we're excited about the idea. We think it'd be a good addition to the school. We are committed to raising the money, but we also understand we wouldn't manage this long term. That is something that we would hand over to the school. There would be some yearly costs associated with the greenhouse going forward. So I'll stop there and ask for questions, but hopefully that was pretty clear.
You said that Boyce Fort and Ely schools are interested in this project. Are there where might the closest school be that you've worked with a project like this, or are there not any other schools?
Yeah, no, there are. I actually have a paper here. Wadena Deer Creek has built one. There's 3 or 4 different schools. I can look for you. Have built.
Which one might be closest to us?
I will look.
That's okay.
Yeah.
There's not another one close to us, but Ely is thinking of it in Boyce Fort.
Yeah. Boyce Fort's looking at building hopefully 2, probably 1 for sure on Net Lake first, and then Ely's doing a remodel there too, so they're looking at building a deep greenhouse. Midland has one that's closest, in terms of latitude, and then Bemidji actually built one as part of their food shelf, so they have a food shelf and they built a deep winter greenhouse with grants, and they use all the produce there to give away for people that need food. So they run one through a nonprofit.
Are you working with or soliciting from any other municipalities for this in our area, or just school districts now?
Yeah, no, this is our first choice would be to build it here. We're not offering this to anyone else in terms of raising money to build this. This was our first choice to try and hopefully build it. Part of me thinks about like all the classroom stuff and all the, there's possibly a business model here where kids grow greens and sell, salads and stuff like that. But mostly I do a little bit of gardening, and I feel like we've lost the ability to understand like where our food comes from and how we grow our food. And part of me just feels like if we could introduce a couple hundred kids a year to just how to grow something, it's not that hard, but if you've never done it before, it seems harder than it needs to be. And so we know that environmentally that local food is probably better than organic food. Like if we can get people to grow food in our area. And so part of me really thinks like the bigger picture would be really just expose kids to growing and then use it as a classroom.
My family has a garden, and the only green thumb that I have is for the weeds, so. But we've had other presenters come and talk about like, farm to table type stuff, and for, we were talking about the nutrition earlier in our working session, and those things are appealing to me too.
Yeah.
I think those would be beneficial for our kids.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think we automatically think of farming up here, but it really is kind of fascinating if you drive out into the country around whether it's here or Cook or Cherry or Embarrass or even a little bit to the south of Duluth. There's quite a bit of farming that happens up here actually, and that's maybe an area that we haven't really thought about in terms of getting our kids into that. But what an opportunity this could end up being.
Outside of Gilbert in the St. Louis County area, river area, there's some of the biggest seed potato farmers that provide seed potatoes for western Minnesota. So
I didn't even know.
I didn't know it until Roy became my father-in-law. Now he's passed, but I used to at least once a summer during harvest get a chance to stand on his machinery and do very little, but see the process. So you're right. We're not. There's dairy farms up here and quite a few other farms. So
yeah, more than you realize. I think I've learned that too. And being on the board, people that are doing CSAs and people that are running beef cattle and some dairy people. It's amazing that there's opportunities out there that we're probably not aware of that some of our students would benefit from.
what exactly, Kate, and I should have asked you this prior, what is the steps on what you're looking for from the school here?
Yeah, I think, and you guys can help me too, because I haven't done this before, but what we're thinking, we kind of think as a memorandum of understanding at some point, that we would write some memorandum of understanding saying that you commit to raising $70,000 and you'd commit to having this space available for a certain amount of time, and that once we raise the money and transfer over, that we would build, this greenhouse, obviously putting in quite a few more details. But I think that's the next step. I think background wise, we've sort of done a bunch of work to know that the space is available, but.
Okay.
Where is the space we're thinking about?
Excellent question. I'll answer it in just a minute. So on this one, members of the board, this was an information to you. So you heard it. What I would suggest, we'll bring it back to a full school board meeting for consideration. And then you can say, yes, let's move forward, or no, we would just need to have the memorandum for the board to look at. Dr. Peterson's been great to work with. They toured the site, take a look at. So where would this be? When you're driving up to the new high school and Slumberland is behind me, the lights are behind me, I'm driving up the road, I first see the high school on my left, there's a loading dock and on the left, and you see concrete, then you see the first wing of the high school, it's right at the base of it. So it would be between, because there's an area that we talked to McKinley Horn, that's the easiest place, the cheapest place, and it's also south facing, which is critical. So that's where we would most likely suggest putting it.
Super. Good question, Matt. Any other questions?
Sounds like a good project.
Yes. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Item 2A, Cassandra.
Thank you for having me. I'm Cassandra Haney. I'm the Positive Community Norms Grant Coordinator for Rockridge. So just a reminder for anybody who doesn't know what that is. The Positive Community Norms Grant is a $1 million 5-year grant that we received from the Department of Human Services Behavioral Health Division to work specifically on primary prevention. So preventing students from using alcohol, tobacco, and other drugs. This past year, we've been laying the groundwork for what we're going to be doing in the coming 4 years. One of the pieces of the grant is to work with a coalition within the community. So I work with the CAPE Coalition. CAPE stands for Chemical Awareness, Prevention, and Education. And we've been doing pilot testing, information gathering. We've created a strategic plan and a media plan for the coming year. We've provided training for our coalition members. We work to have representation from different sectors of the community. So there are folks from the business community, from social services, from the police department. There's 14 different sectors that are identified and represented that are part of the coalition. And then we've been doing one-on-one community interviews just to hear from folks what they think is happening with students, what they're concerned about, other ideas, because you kind of get in your lane and think that's how everything is. So trying to reach out to folks from all over our community. And then to keep that connection with the school as well, this past year, CAPE paid for lunch for appreciation for our teachers in Gilbert, Evworth, and Virginia for Teacher Appreciation Week. We've also started a student group called CORE, which stands for Creating Our Range Every Day. So these are students that are focused on hosting events that are, and they do the students do the planning, on hosting events that are substance-free, fun, and then they are free for students to attend. So everything that we do, we make as accessible as possible for students to go to. This last year, they hosted, their first event was just games and pizza at the Iron Trail Motors Event Center. They had a movie night where we had 3 different movies playing. They brought in a speaker for 7th through 12th graders and provided transportation to get all the students to Goodman Auditorium. And then they also had a presentation that evening that had resources out and dinner for community members. And we took 2 trips to Adventure Zone. So one night with 2 buses full of students and one night with 3 buses full of students. All students were fed. So really we try to make it so that if they want to go, they can. And I reached out for permission that if needed, if transportation from home was an issue, that we could provide that as well for it. Our core students are also growing their skills. They ended the year discussing their hopes and concerns about our community. And then they'll be taking what they talked about and doing, it's called a Photovoice Project in the coming year, which I would love to share with the board when we've completed it. And they'll also be doing upstander training. So a bystander is somebody who sees things that are happening in the community, and upstander is like that next step where you step in or you redirect. So they'll be doing that training so they can present to 6th graders. Through the PCN grant, we were able to purchase 35 sets of snowshoes, which Virginia Surplus sold to us at cost, as well as 30 mountain bikes from 30 West. This equipment's all going to be available to our PE teachers. I did work with Spencer Ani to make sure that our insurance would allow for that. I didn't want to cause any trouble. And we'll be working with our PE teachers to get the training they need, because there's some free training through the Minnesota Department of Transportation to make sure that they can take students out on bicycles. But we're also wanting that equipment to be available for student groups or even our teachers at the end of a long and stressful day. If our teachers want to sign out a bike and go on the Mesabi Trail, I think that, especially with where this high school is located, I think that would be amazing. One of the core tenets of what we do with, or one of the core principles that we have with the Positive Community Norms Grant is that the positive is real. it exists and it's worth growing. And when I look at the Iron Range, I think about our outdoors, and that's one of the most amazing things that we have. And so how do we teach our students to enjoy it so that they have the choice to make healthy choices? I worked with our health teachers again, and Alicia Schroeder, along with the Department of Human Services, to find an up-to-date middle school health curriculum. And this summer, I was able to bring Tara Fierke, Jill Clennon, and Samantha Craig from Rockridge, along with Jana Blomberg from the Cape Coalition, to the Montana Summer Institute, where we learned more about positive community norms, advanced messaging, and then we took a deep dive into statistics to find out if and how positive community norms work, and if they're still relevant after the pandemic, because that has changed how we interact with each other. And yes, they unequivocally do. This was a great opportunity because it not only were we able to learn from Dr. Jeff Linkenbach, who was the founder of the positive community norms approach, but we were able to have discussions with somebody from our Evworth, Gilbert, and Virginia buildings, all there, and talking about how we could best bring this back to our community and our schools. I do have one handout for you. So an actual norm is the way the actual behavior or attitude of the majority of a population. It's what most people do or believe. A perceived norm is the perceived behavior or perceived attitude of most people. So it's what we think that most people do. So in the Minnesota Student Survey, they are asked some of these questions. How often do you drink? How often do you think most students drink? So these are absolutely like cherry picked, right? So I received some of our data back and picked some out in order to show you that difference between what a actual norm is and perceived norm with our students. I will say that if you look at the number of students that never vape or think most students have vaped, for those of you in the audience, I'll just share 73% of our 10th graders have never used a vaping device or e-cigarette. 80% of our 10th graders believe that most students do. And actually, if you follow that out, most of our students also think that most students use on a daily basis. So you can see how with that, that perceived peer pressure, when you're making a choice whether or not to try something, if you think everybody's doing it, it's a lot harder to say no. So a big part of this grant is working on those misperceptions and correcting them. By the way, this is not a deep dive into the MSS data. If the board at some point would like that, I would love to. Absolutely, I would love to come in either during a working session or one of your other sessions, or you are all more than welcome to attend a coalition meeting to dig into the data with us. The last time I was here, I was asked if we only rely on MSS data, and the answer is no. And I also have some more information on what other data we use. So there's a positive community norm survey, which is similar to the Minnesota Student Survey, only it takes out, there are no questions on sexuality, there are no questions on a lot of the other topics. It really is just use and perceived use. So it's very short. But we also get data from our local public health, from Bridge to Health, which is data to better understand the overall picture and adult use, data from our hospital systems and their community needs assessments. We have somebody from Essentia that is part of our coalition. We get data from law enforcement, more anecdotal type data from our one-on-one conversations. We get data from the school and share where we are allowed to. We have the Photovoice Project, which students do. That is not hard data again, but that is the perception of our students and what their hopes and concerns are. And then we work directly with the Wilder Research Group, the Minnesota Department of Health and Department of Human Services. And then just, again, more anecdotal evidence, but our coalition members share at every meeting what they are seeing from their perception, and those are recorded in our minutes. So going into this coming school year, we are excited to, we just got data back starting at the beginning of June and then more in August. So we actually have stuff that we can use. We get a little more meat to it. And so we are excited to be sharing with our students and teachers and community members. The Evworth Student Council reached out and said, gosh, we really want to make this year special. This is the last year our seniors are going to be Golden Bears. They're in sports, they're Rockridge, but this is their last year in their high school, which is very exciting and sad and bittersweet and wonderful. And so they want to make it really special. And so we're going to work with them they're going to be making posters that will have some of our messaging on it, and then we can provide ice cream for them for their first week of school. The same thing, the Virginia Web Group reached out and said, we really want to kick off the year well. We want to welcome folks in. We want to welcome in 7th graders. And so we will be helping out with their 7th grade orientation. And we have some fun equipment, like it's called 9 Square. And it's kind of like 4 Square, only it's over your head. It's a lot of fun. Kids like it. So we have equipment that we will be sharing for homecoming this year. I know you are each incredibly busy, but if any of you have time and would like to do a one-on-one interview for me to hear your perspective on substance use with our youth or what's going on in the community, I would really appreciate your time. Otherwise, if you are interested in helping, but that's too much, we're going to be doing some large items like billboards that we need pilot tested. Sometimes when you're looking at something, it looks perfect, and then somebody else sees it and notices something that you didn't because you've been looking at it too long. So that would be appreciated as well. What questions do you have?
The only question I have is, can you make sure when you have your meetings that you get it to Stacy so that we can get it on our agenda so board members know that do want to attend?
Absolutely, yes.
Sandra, I can see how much you love your job, because I sat in the city council meeting when you presented there, and it's good to see someone with that
passion,
that pride to have so much for the school district. So thank you.
Well, I would say even for the community and encouraging kids and staff to take advantage of the wonderful resources that we have in terms of nature and with helping to buy bikes and snowshoes. Sometimes those items are cost prohibitive. And so for you guys to purchase that and encourage people to use them and take advantage of that, I think it's just a really incredible and amazing thing. And so I just want to thank you for not only supporting our students and our staff, but the community as well.
Cassandra, how is it that our students participate in the PCN program? Is it voluntary? Is it like after school? It's not community ed? It's not extracurricular? Is part of it intertwined with some classrooms?
So there's multiple answers to that question. So students are some of our stakeholders, right? And so this year, when we have the full kind of scrubbed version of our MSS data, I've talked to our health teachers about presenting to their students in health classes. Our group that's called CORE is another student group. Their acceptance policy of students is wide open. They created their own rules of membership, but anybody can join. You don't have to have a certain GPA, for example. And those meetings take place twice a month. And then we have kind of one-off events that students can participate in as well. And so for example, when we went to Adventure Zone, it was put in the bulletin and it was put out through Bright Arrow. If you get your permission slip signed, you were in.
So it's more on a voluntary basis.
Absolutely.
And opt-in, kind of like maybe a 4-H or what's the other one, like the business one? Business partners.
Oh, I was thinking FFA, but
yeah, I was thinking FFA too.
Okay.
But you do, within the school district, you make available the opportunities through bulletins, which is good. And then you mentioned curriculum, health curriculum, health teachers. Mm-hmm. Is there suggestions that you're making for the curriculum actually, or just announcements?
No, so I worked with our health teachers. We had kind of a long list that we could pull from that were pre-approved, and then the Department of Human Services does not like to go in and say, this is how you have to do things, because if they just take a can and put it in the middle of a room, it might work or it might not, depending on your community. And so in order for the grant to pay for it, they do have to approve it, but it doesn't have to be something that they've dictated. And so I worked with Alicia Schroeder to find out some of the curriculums that she was seeing that she would choose, and found one that fit well. Then showed it to the health teachers. They said, gosh, can we have a Schoology integrated version? So it's Comprehensive Health Skills is the name of the curriculum. It's a textbook, and there is an online version. And which health teachers use it will be kind of up to them. We're meeting at the beginning of the school year. Not everybody said that they were going to use it yet, but part of that was because we were communicating over the summer. And so thankfully the turnaround time is darn quick. So if the rest say, yes, we'd like it as well, we'll be able to order more.
So you're saying that the teachers then decide what things to interject into their curriculum as far as these canned programs like comprehensive health skills?
I mean, it's a full textbook. So, I mean, yeah.
So the teachers decide whether they're going to use it in their health classes or not?
Any other questions? Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Keep up the good work. Thank you. Item 6, item 5.3, Superintendent's Report.
Thank you, members of the board. A few updates for the school board. First update is we had so much fun having an excess furniture sale. Let's do it again. So we are going to have another excess furniture sale that will be held in Gilbert. It will be on Thursday and Friday. Both days they will run from 10 in the morning to 2. We have furniture that did not sell the first sale, and then we also have some additional furniture that we're also going to be selling at that sale. We have advertised it widely, and so we have priced things, and we'll price things so local residents can get things fairly without paying a lot of great deals. So this is just letting the board know we will have another excess furniture sale. This is not the last one. We will have to have some more next summer, and then we'll have to have some more again the following summer, because we still have a lot of furniture that is currently in storage, especially in Evworth Gilbert High School and in the bottom of Franklin. So, but for now, we have one more sale coming up, just kind of an FYI for the school board.
Date? Do you have a date?
Yes, Thursday, Friday, so this is 22,
25,
26. This week, Thursday and Friday, 10 to 2. Bring your money, bring your trailer. Don't forget great deals. Christmas is right around the corner. So we've got lots of great deals for people who are looking for things to purchase. Another thing just at the board, yes, the beginning of the school year is close by. And I'm pretty sure we're now to the point where we have many parents who are just as excited that the school year is right around the corner. So the principals and the admin team, there's a lot of teachers who are already showing up in the buildings, getting ready. We're getting the pairs ready. So the school year isn't that far away. We're ready for it. And Bob Boss is working on transportation schedules. We know that a lot of parents, this is not an easy time for some parents because of transportation. We have new schedules, we have new lines, we have new attendance boundary lines. So we do understand that I'm in no way saying that everyone is happy with the way things are rolling out. We will do our best. We're just, for parents and community people, just talk to us and we'll do our best to work through any one specific situation. But the kids are coming in, the kids are signing up. We are experiencing no surprise on the attendance. So, and as far as people who are attending, so from a budget point of view, we look to be in good shape as of this minute right here. So just an update, the start of the school year is nearly here.
Could we get those updated enrollment figures sometime soon?
Yes. I have another principal meeting coming up. I'll ask them what their current numbers are as they are aware of it, and then I'll get those numbers to you.
We need to know if we need additional teachers or if we have an excess of teachers, either small class sizes or large class sizes.
Yep. And the teaching staff is what we have. We're beyond the point where we can adjust our teaching staff.
I know that just affects the class size then.
Yep.
And then about the transportation problems, I don't know what you're doing or the department's doing, but there seem to be a lot of parents that have a concern about transportation to daycare either before or after. And I guess they're being told that there will not be transportation for some of their children. Are we going to lose some of those parents?
Well, every situation is unique, and Director Sorkin, without knowing what a specific situation is, it's almost impossible to address it. So we still are transporting kids. We still have drop-offs. We do have some parents who we're trying to find out, are their kids riding the bus or are they not riding the bus? And we do have some situations where some kids will have to go to walk a little bit to get to a bus pickup. But I guess to those parents who are frustrated, I guess they need to call us and talk with us about each specific situation.
Yeah, I heard that some of them have, or the ones that contacted me have, and they said that they were told that their child would not be transported either on the front end or the back end, like say to the Mountain Iron, Little Tykes and some of the.
Yep, I know exactly what you're talking about.
Yeah, I mean.
I've got those calls.
I know, but I'm saying I'm concerned about it. Can we find a solution for those families?
And part of that is, this is some of the younger kids. These are the pre-K kids. And when the attendance boundary lines were drawn, and we talked about this as a full board, and you told us that once these lines are drawn, wherever they ended up being, we were not going to send buses across the attendance boundary lines, and we're not. This, however, has created some difficulties for some parents, especially in the daycare setting. We are transporting kids from daycares to the neighborhood elementary school, and back. We are doing that. The difficulty is coming in. We do have some parents who are expecting us to transport across the attendance boundary line, and we frankly don't have the buses or the drivers to do that. But it is frustrating some parents.
Not only just attendance boundary lines, it's to other school districts or municipalities, right? It's not just the attendance, I mean the residential boundary lines.
Well, yeah, so if we have some open enrollment kids, we can't send a bus to pick them up. We just can't. It doesn't make sense economically. If there's a cluster, yeah, then we go do that. But sometimes there's some kids who want to open enroll, and we'll take them, but you can't be sending buses out all over the place to pick up every single person who wants to come.
Well, yeah, I know, but we have in the past, we've gone beyond our boundaries, both Evworth Gilbert did and Virginia did before, either to pick them up for the money, the funding, and or to bring them for the funding.
And if the question is, with Brown Transportation, can we transport some kids via Brown Transportation? There were some situations where that did occur. We are trying to not do that because we would like the kids to ride the regular school bus if they possibly can.
Yeah, and I would too. Or to allow some children to jump on the bus, like say at Parkville, because some of the older kids are already being transported. Parkview, sorry. The ones like that are going to the old Franklin. Mm-hmm. And in those situations, I think they were told that no, they couldn't do that just because some of the older siblings were doing it.
Right. And remember, when I started this, I said not everybody is happy with the transportations. Overall, as time goes by, most families will adjust. Some families will just need to carpool and talk to one another, but you do not have the buses, the drivers to be going across the attendance lines right now. Even if you told me do it,
Yeah.
I'd be saying we can't.
And yes, we did as a board make some decisions, but now that some of these things are popping up, I would hope that we could take a second look and to see if there's some way that we can resolve some of these, if not all of them, probably not all of them, but some more of them, so we don't lose those students to other school districts. Okay.
I wouldn't want Bob Voss's job.
It's going to be tough, I know.
He's there every night until 8:30, 9 o'clock. He doesn't go home. He spends Sundays in that garage trying to figure out what he's going to do. And
He rides a bus.
his biggest fear is with this consolidation, sending a bus out with, Virginia used to pick up these kids and Evans used to pick up these kids here. When you send a bus out, a 77 passenger bus, and all of a sudden there's 90 or 79 kids, what are we going to do?
Well, I know of a situation, I had been contacted by an individual that had some concerns, safety concerns with busing, and had made some phone calls to administration and to Bob Voss and things, and just to speak to the fact that, it's got to be a stressful job right now, trying to figure all that out, and I'm sure it's very overwhelming, but that person had been able to make contact with Bob Voss, and there was a solution that they came up with that was acceptable, reasonable to that individual. So in what you're saying, if they contact, for their own individual situation, there's possibilities of solutions being able to come, to fruition or whatever.
There's one more thing about transportation and boundary lines. When we deliver students to the end of our boundary, which we are obliged to do, obligated to do, and then they have to, if they're going to a different school in a different district, those drop-off places, I think we need to take a serious look at that, because if it's a gas station out on old highway number 7, and whatever that other one is going to Hibbing, that's the drop-off place. That's not fair to that business to say, okay, we're dropping you off, and now it's, even for their liability, I don't think it's right to drop them off at a business location, and then whatever thing is going to come and pick them up and bring them to their final destination. I don't think we should be doing that, and that might be a lot.
I believe I know what you're talking about again.
Oh, that was one, yeah.
The business is okay with what's happening,
Well,
and we are legally obligated to go to the boundary end.
but you just drop them off there or anywhere.
We also are concerned, because Bob Boss and I talk almost every day, we have to drop off at a safe place. We don't want to drop a kid off in the middle of nowhere, even though it's on the boundary line. That's not a safe place to drop a kid off. So the specific situation you're talking about, that is it's a safe area for us to drop the kids off and for someone to pick them up.
I would imagine with what Tom brought up about sending the bus out, 77 passenger, and we have more, that we would accommodate the more students and figure a way out by possibly having shifts or whatever.
And Bob knows that.
Yeah.
And so what he doesn't know, because of the new attendance boundaries, exactly who's riding and who isn't.
Yep.
And so he knows that once he knows how many kids are on a bus, he can move some buses and change a few things to help us some specific situations.
It'll evolve.
It'll evolve. It's always that first few days, you just know what you have. And I mean, if the driver's keeping track of how many kids are on the bus, when you get to that magic number, he's going to call in and say, I can't pick up any more students. You're going to have to send somebody out here. And they will make those arrangements. So it'll all work out.
One other thing on the flip side, do we not have to provide transportation to all students that are eligible past that, about 2 mile, 3 mile line? What I'm getting at is, okay, so sometimes, a lot of times, especially in high school, you've got high school kids that they drive themselves to school. A lot of them do. So if we have to reserve a spot on that bus and they aren't using it and they're driving themselves, do we have to reserve a spot for eligible bus riders?
If Bob hasn't heard from those particular kids, he does have to take that into account, because we will have a bunch of kids who, yes, they could drive or drive with someone else, but we don't know that for sure. And so he doesn't want to overload a bus, and he doesn't want to leave kids at a corner. So he's got to play it a little safe right now until we know which high school kids are riding and which are not.
I know, my question was though, are we obligated to have a seat on that bus for that student all year if they qualify to be a bus rider? We don't.
No.
So what if they
If
ride the
show
bus?
up, we have to pick them up.
Okay, if they ride the bus 50% of the time and not 50% of the time, we don't have to have a seat for them.
So we have to have a seat for them the 50% of the time they want to
Well,
ride the bus.
that was my question.
It's a guessing game. Bob is constantly estimating.
So I'm just saying, instead of a full bus and you have too many, sometimes we could have a bus designated for 70, 72, and typically only have, I don't know, 60, 50. And we have a partially empty bus. Like, that's just another problem on
a
it.
77 passenger bus and you're picking up a majority of high school kids. I can guarantee you're not going to get 77.
Well, that's my point. Yeah.
So
How empty are those?
I think it's a floating variable that our transportation for the last 2 years has done a good job. And now we have different different boundary lines, and I'm sure they'll be adjusted by the end of September.
So far, we feel we have it under control. I'm not going to say everyone's going to be happy with it. So just your parent, call us if you have an issue. Last thing to let the board know is that records. We have a lot of old records in the Gilbert building. We have the same thing in the Virginia building. We have the same thing in the Evworth buildings. So just to let the board know, we are not throwing any of those records away. Let me repeat that. We are not throwing any of the records away, of the old records. We have them. So I have a meeting set up with representatives from the local Minnesota Historical Society. You do have a records retention schedule that you have adopted and you have passed. So that's what we're going to follow. And as part of that process, and this will come back to you again and again, I'm just giving you a foreshadowing, is that the proper procedure is to go via the Minnesota Historical Society. Now, who is the Minnesota Historical Society? Welcome to the fun. There are local branches here who are the official reps to the Minnesota Historical Society. Those are who we're going to meet with. In addition to that, out at Chisholm, at that facility, there also is an archive, someone who works with the archives, and we'll talk to them about it. But there will be a procedure from it. We are not letting any person who wants to look at the records. This is not a case where anybody gets to look at them. This is not a case where we're going to publish the records in a newspaper. There's still private, confidential information and data that is there. So we will go through a process. It will be a long process, and we have a lot of boxes. Just in the Gilbert building alone, I'm going to estimate 50-plus boxes of records from 1920s through 1940s, maybe up to 1950s. Some of which we don't need to keep, but we do want historians to go through it and help us with decisions on what we need to keep.
So at what point does that leave being personal, private, confidential information on an individual versus a historical society getting control of those records?
And that's why we're going through the Minnesota Historical Society. So we really don't want, we'll follow the records retention policy that you have, and that's why you don't let volunteers in. They have to go through the official Minnesota.
And they have regulations on what they can do and what they can't do once they've received the records.
Or the person who the record is about to say, no, I want that, and I want it to destroy it, and I don't want it to be a part of historical society.
And some things we have are not official school records.
Well, thank you.
Just an update, that's coming.
Okay, moving along. 6.2, consider approval of bid for removal of artwork from the Gilbert campus.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion by Director Tamaro, support by that you, Brandy? Director Lotiger? Is there any discussion?
On your motion, can we be clear that that motion is only for, it says 750, only for those listed items and not for the removal of, where it says possible removal? For the things outside the freezes, is that how you say them, freezes, I think? On the wall, I think those are cement pieces that would have to be taken down very carefully. So the 750 only applies to that list right there, right? I'd like that clarified.
Yeah, that's what the bid says.
Okay, but it says possible removal, so.
It says cost of the removal of artwork does not include the cantoria.
Okay, so I just wanted to be understood that it doesn't include that, because I have a little more discussion about that.
Okay.
Okay, yeah.
That fine with, just specified what's in the bid, correct?
Just to clarify, so we went out for bids, is this the only one that?
Correct.
Correct.
And how far and wide did we advertise for this?
We advertised this one from Grand Rapids all the way to northeast Minnesota.
You said, okay, you told me certain papers before, but it wasn't all of the newspapers in that whole area. But anyway, I have no problem with this, and it's for 750, that's fine. Local person, somebody's not going to come from northern Minnesota to do this anyway. But related to this, I talked about it at another meeting, that in these buildings, if we are serious about selling these buildings, and if they become designated on the historic register, and a developer, we find a developer, they most certainly will want to go for those tax credits and some other grants that relate to being on the National Register of Historic Places. So I talked with some people who their jobs, their careers, their interests lie in this area, and that, I don't know if I'm going to repeat myself again, but sometimes those things, those historic fixtures and pillars and whatever, things on the wall, on the inside and the outside, has a major bearing on whether you get either those historic tax credits contingent upon it being listed as a historic place.
Well, we're not talking about any of that here.
Well,
So I don't know that it relates to anything regarding the motion.
well,
Yeah. I remember you talking about that in the past, Polly, but this is for specific items.
I know, but see, because it was even mentioned in here, there has been talk about removing that. All I'm saying is if that stuff is going to be removed, and I know there's some big pillars on the outside of the building by one door, it's been discussed, so I'm just adding to that discussion, that it needs to be done by professionals that do that, know how to do it, and or because to replace those things, to replace them with like looking things, you take a picture, well, here's the sconce up here. Well, we're going to recreate that so it can, listen, just.
Well, let me interrupt just for one brief moment.
I always get interrupted. I'm almost done.
Well, the thing is, if that comes up, then your discussion would be pertinent.
But it is pertinent because it's.
It is not in this motion, Polly, so I will let you finish.
Thank you. You just should have anyway, there wouldn't have been a problem. All I'm saying is that we could put a proposal out for that type of thing separately, or leave them there for the developer to be able to qualify for things, that's all.
Is there any other discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Carried. Consider approval of an option for the Gilbert campus building regarding utilities winterization during the winter months.
I would like to make a motion that we turn off all of utilities, put the building for sale. The cost to keep that building open or heat it just to maintain it, it's crazy.
I'll support that motion.
We have a motion by Tom, support by Stacy. Only, not a correction, but the buildings are up for sale. Correct, Noel?
Yes.
So, okay. So now
Right.
let's, huh?
The motion is to winterize.
Yep.
Not to.
So is there any discussion?
And just to clarify what the cost of winterizing would be? There's a lot of figures on here, and I haven't had a chance to study it. What's the figure to winterize?
I thought the total was in the board packet.
There's a lot of numbers, and right now I can't pinpoint what the cost of winterizing is. Noel?
And do we need to add into that to demo the science wing?
Well,
Here's what we learned. This might help members of the board. Last time I was here, there was some brief discussion about what happens if we do not tear down the science wing. Can we set that money aside and save it? So we looked at too what would happen if that would happen. And the last document in your list has the estimated cost that if you say do not demo that old science wing, here's that's a probable likely scenario. Could be higher, could be a little bit less. It's a lot more than I thought. I was surprised by it, but it makes sense once you think about it. The abatement is over. They've already abated the building, and that was a significant cost of the demo. There's a small minor fencing cost because you have to put a fence around it when you're doing the demoing. The contractors, Rachel Kraus-Anderson, they've already spent a significant amount of time on this building. It's not a case where they wake up and suddenly decide to tear the building down. You're going to incur significant costs, about $100,000 from both of them for the time they put into it already. So do you save a little bit of money? Yeah, you save over $100,000 by not tearing it down. That's for you to decide what you want to do. From a sell the building point of view, it is the worst part of the building. I'm only speaking for myself. My concern is that if that is left standing, it will negatively impact the ability for us to sell that building, because the odds are that if somebody does buy the building, keep in mind we do not have somebody who wants to buy that building right now. The likelihood is very high they are going to have to gut the building, and they're going to have to put in new pipes, some new electrical panels, and where they put them, I don't know. Where they put new furnaces, I don't know. But that would be for whoever bought the building to make that decision. You do have some staggering ongoing costs if you decide to keep the building open, running. It's up to you to decide, but we want you to know exactly what's happening here so there's no surprises. That if you tell me to keep the building running and operating, this easily could cost the district $300,000, $400,000. If you tell me that you'd like to just winterize the building, let's shut it down, but winterize it as best you can. I talked to Pat Gallagher. I asked him his opinion on it. You saw a bid, $50,000 to $60,000. If someone else winterized it, that means you try and blow out the water and you put antifreeze in, you do your best job you can. Pat knows I'm going to say this because I asked him for permission to say this. He says, Noel, those pipes are still going to split because there's so many pipes. It's unlikely whoever does it, they're going to get all of the water out. You're going to have some pipes split. You just need to understand that. And you just need to understand you'll just need to repair some pipes no matter what you do with it. You just need to understand that.
so the answer to my question is 50 to 60,000 to winterize.
If we hired somebody to do
Okay.
that, yes.
Where's part B if we did it?
If less, however, talking to Mike Hogue about this and Jim Andrick, I don't know if you have the custodians right now to do this and get it done.
They do that on the Evworth, old Evworth Junior High School. Our staff did that.
Yep, the staff is not what it was at that.
Well, I'm just saying, our staff did it at one point in time.
And we discussed at the last meeting.
Okay.
And if you tell me you want our custodians to do it, we'll do it. But I just need to tell you that they're nervous about it. but cleaning their other areas.
They've done it before. How much would that cost? Do you have an idea? We have to know.
It was at our last meeting.
Well, how much? I don't have my meetings.
Oh, 50, for somebody else to do it, 50 to 60,000.
Yeah, but for our staff.
If we do it, you want
Do you know
thousands.
the answer to that, Stacy?
I could look it up.
Well, then that's why I'm asking. I'm asking him so we don't have to look it up.
A lot of it is time.
It'll be less than 50 to 60,000.
But the staff, they're running ragged the way it is, my understanding.
I don't want to overburden them, so
Enthusiastic about his staff doing it. when he was there.
hey, that's fine, that's fine. I just needed to know.
I don't need to snark, I was just commenting.
Okay.
Is the demo bid of 353, and we went through this, we approved it.
Correct.
Does that include the 107 for the abatement?
Yep.
So that's already spent.
That isn't even part of this proposal, that isn't even part of this item.
I know, but we got all kinds of information about that.
All right, but no, I just asked that because Dr. Smith brought it up.
Yes.
Part of
You-
this
You have a
discussion.
lot going on with this building. And from my point of view, if I were to say anything to you, please make a decision. Please tell us what you want to do with this building. We do not have a bona fide offer. I do not have a seller who's really looking at it seriously, but we need to make a decision on what to do with this building. The clock is ticking on the building, and unless you tell us to do anything differently, that science wing is coming down. So what we need to know, if you're going to continue with that, is what do you want us to do? Do you want us to try to winterize the building? Do you want us to take everything out and just close it down, turn the utilities off, and then try to sell it? In talking to people who do this for a living, they are telling me that other buildings have been shut down and they've still sold. It is not a deal breaker for somebody who wants to buy the building. Who knows what's going to happen with stuff inside, but it has happened where people have purchased buildings that have been cold for a year or two.
Or longer. I support this. I support winterizing it, but there are a lot of things on this paper that we got. The abatement is all done. So the abatement didn't have anything to do with the electrical, but to demolish that will affect electrical.
Absolutely.
Okay, so my point was, I was told by people working on this that if it comes down, I guess we've already decided that, right? About the electric.
Decided that.
The board has decided that, yeah. But to leave those electrical panels there, they're not that old, and that if you take them and throw them away and then you come back and you have to replace them, that's going to be expensive. So I was advised to leave those electrical panels there. There's other stuff that you can take and not to get rid of that. So that'll be better for a developer, and it'll be better for the whole building. So I would
That should
have heard
be the
that.
option.
consider.
And what needs to happen is that the demolition, the company who won the bid, that is their building to tear down. So if somebody wants to try and salvage that, they have to talk to me ASAP, like right now, tomorrow. And then we would hook them up with the contractor, and they would have to talk to the contractor about.
That's fine, but that's just a scenario about that.
So, Tom, you had made the motion, so you had asked if you're making the motion for winterizing, and then also for the demolition of the science wing. I also remember the guy that was here, the individual that was here at the last meeting that spoke about Richard being beneficial to take off the science wing for the purpose of if somebody did want to buy, because of what the condition it's in, et cetera. So I guess I'm just looking for clarification. What is your motion?
We've already decided to knock that science wing.
Yeah.
Okay.
My motion is to shut off all utilities.
Winterize.
And winterize.
And no, not to winterize.
Oh, not to, I'm
Not to
sorry.
winterize.
So
Oh, well, there's a big difference.
Are we looking at winterizing as best we can with our own people, or just shut them off and?
Well, that wasn't even discussed. I'm in favor of close it up, shut the electricity, shut off the power. We have no heat. If it sells, it sells.
And everything, pipes are all going to bust? That's what your motion would actually
My
accomplish.
motion was,
Okay, I misunderstood.
I misunderstood too, because I had asked for clarification if you were talking about winterizing, and originally you said yes, that you were making a motion to winterize. So are you amending your motion to say that?
No, he said I'm just to shut off the utilities, yeah. So that means something.
utilities.
Now, one thing for the board to know, if you tell us to just shut the building down and go cold, we will drain the water out of the pipes as best we can,
Our staff.
Done. That'll be,
our staff.
And you said that that is going to overburden or our staff in doing that.
They are worried. They're not saying we can't do it. They're just worried about pulling custodians at this time of year to do it.
but it'll lessen any damage that potentially could happen,
Correct.
so.
Chair, can I ask the question? Because I had asked to speak.
No,
Okay.
I'm sorry, but thank you. Okay, so we have had discussion. We have a motion by Tom, second by Stacy. Not.
I guess I still want to discuss this. I guess I want to just, I want to understand. So is the recommend, sorry, Noel, I just want to be clear about it because I want to make sure that, I want to be clear about it, and I want to make sure that the decision that we're making is going to still make this building marketable. I mean, so somebody may potentially want to buy it. If we just shut the doors and board it up and we have bursted pipes and water damage or any of that kind of thing, then I don't support that. I mean, if we're winterizing.
Right. Well, the pipes are going to split, I believe, almost no matter what you do. That's what Pat Gallagher is telling me, because we're not going to get all of the water.
Some pipes will split.
Yeah.
In all the places.
Yeah, that's not,
But Noel, I think the question, and correct me if I'm wrong, the question is, if we vote not to winterize, our custodians will go there and drain
I mean, yes,
as they're not going to blow, they're going to drain as much as they can to minimize any damage to that building.
correct.
So if we vote to shut the utilities off, but at the end to not winterize, or just shut the utilities off, our staff is going to use their best efforts to
Yep.
prepare the
Winterize.
building as good,
Yep.
well as possible.
Which seems to be the most economical thing for us to do at this time. And still have a viable building to sell.
but just draining the pipes is not the whole, you blow out the toilets, you blow out this and that and the radiators. So draining the pipes, it still doesn't mean that a lot of damage might not be done versus having the experts do the building. And even though some pipes might split, not all pipes will split. And at least I would rather go for less damage than more damage.
Did we have a plan for winterizing this building budget-wise?
No,
We did not.
And I believe that will make it less marketable. So if we are in good faith wanting to sell that building, we're not going to make it less marketable and have more damage in that building.
Rethos is telling us that, and other people have done this, the reality is that whoever buys the building, they are not going to use the pipes in that building. They're old, they have lead in them. We don't know where the lead is. Most people they're gonna gut the building, which means the pipes will not be reused. That's
So
what
if they burst,
most-
it's not an issue, is what you're saying.
It's an issue. Whoever buys those buildings, we are gonna disclose that there is lead in those pipes.
There are a lot of houses that have lead pipes in them.
Yeah, once they look at it, it's a different story.
Okay, so is there any other discussion on this? If not, we have a motion to not winterize the Evworth Gilbert, the Gilbert campus. All those in favor signify by saying,
The other part of that is that our staff will,
and I'll add,
Okay.
our staff will winterize to the best, or not, they will drain the pipes as best as they can.
that's just the pipes, huh? Okay, there's a lot more to the winterizing.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed?
No,
Okay, so we have Polly and Brandy. No. And we have Stacy. Tom, Tim, and Matt. Yes. Motion passes. Thank you. Okay, I'm running out of places to write here tonight. Consider approval of the 2024 LEFM documents for the Minnesota Department of Education. Spence,
Yes.
you're here. I thought we were going to have to wake you up.
We're asking you to approve the 2024 10-year long-term facility maintenance expenditure plan. This is the plan we do annually. It is part of the levy that you will be approving here coming up in September and then again in December. So that's why we send this form off to the Department of Ed. Majority of this report is an estimate as it's 10 years out, and the funding formula is based on your average building age. So as we're opening new buildings and closing old buildings, we're going to have less funding in these categories going forward. This current one, 2024, is still the full funding. We're at the maximum average age life for this fund. But just know that coming up in 10 years, less than 10 years, it'll be different. So the uses of these funds are for deferred projects necessary to prevent further erosion of our buildings, and or health and safety capital projects. So that's what's on these forms. And as you know, we've talked the last few meetings about the things that are happening within this building here and what's happening within the portion of the North Star Elementary that is still standing. That'll be using a lot of these funds over the next 2 years.
Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Stacy. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Brandy. Is there any discussion for Spencer?
Spencer, we already submit this form?
We have not submitted this one.
Okay, we're overdue.
I've informed the Department of Ed because the last 2 board meetings, we've had information that's on this report that was discussed at the board that I wanted to have on there, so they know that it's coming.
And I'd just like to say that this whole plan is really supposed to be board adopted, board understood, board input, board decisions. And I don't remember one meeting, whether it's a budget meeting or a board meeting or a working session, where we've discussed the details of this. I mean, for no offense, but for a superintendent and a business manager to come up with this and we're just going to approve it and rubber stamp it, here's what the Department of Ed says about long-term facilities maintenance plan. It says, it's important for school boards to understand the 10-year plan. The school board is approving the inclusion of costs for the plan summary in the district levy. So now we have not had any input or any information about how this is going to affect our taxpayers, a levy. We may or may not have agreed with it, but I don't know any of you or myself that can say we understand this and had input. The commissioner does not know project details, but relies on the school board review and acceptance of the plan. So my bottom line point is that we have not had discussion, input, understanding of these expenses, these levies, these taxes on our people. And we need to do that in the future. And we should have done it all along.
I believe that all the expenses that are in the North Star Elementary that are included on this form was adopted by the school board as part of the construction project.
And that's my point. It was
The wrestling room a month ago was approved by the school board and is on this project. Other things past these couple of years, if you can tell me which buildings we're going to need to fix, I would love to hear. But to say that nothing on this report has come to the board,
I didn't say nothing. I said we needed more in-depth participation in these decisions and things. And yes, when it came to the board, we pretty much just said, yeah, that sounds good, let's pass it. And I'm saying, you know, you're interrupting me. And you were. Thank you. Thank you. You know, you weren't at the seminar that we were, and I think you were.
I hope we're not going to take personal attacks at anybody.
Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Interruptions either.
Well,
I
have the right to do that.
There's the insinuation
She doesn't.
that.
She doesn't.
Finish your point. Finish your point, Polly.
I'm done. She's.
Okay.
There's an insinuation that Dr. Schmidt and Spencer have put together this maintenance plan without any input or understanding from the board. And like Spencer just pointed out, we have had opportunities to ask questions. We have had opportunities for input. So nothing has been done under the table. There's not any burden put on the taxpayers that this board has not approved. And so with all the work that Spencer has done for us, Business Administrator of the Year for the whole state, to say that they are just putting numbers in and putting a plan together without board input is disrespectful and disingenuous and not accurate information.
You are, that is totally your opinion. I was.
Everything you say is your opinion. I'm just saying.
And I'm not.
Okay, enough.
You are saying that
Holly?
it was an insinuation of under the table stuff.
Holly.
You missed my whole point. My whole point is I hope that board members have more input in.
We did have
And
some input.
I would like.
I said more
Stop,
input.
Please.
More input.
Stop.
I think that you're interrupting me, even though you're the chair.
I'm interrupting you because you continually.
I'm continually interrupted, that's why.
We have someone that has called for the question.
You need a second.
I will second it.
Good.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried.
No.
Thank you.
Are you voting no?
Spencer.
Good.
Okay. 5-1.
Thanks, Spencer.
Thank you, Spencer. Item number 5, approve the facility use agreement between the City of Virginia ISD 2909 Rock Ridge for 2225 with stipulation that the contract agreement changes to a 1-year agreement and the hours change from $500 to $300. Excuse me, and the dollar changed to.
The hours are changed from
Yeah, I'm
100 to
sorry.
350, and the dollar amount changes to
Changes 62.
1,500.
Thank you. No,
Now,
do we have this contract?
Got it.
It's in a-
That's on the,
However, members of the board, we
Okay.
have one activity director here. Right now, the circumstance has changed. There are 2 related items. There's this agreement, and then there's the City of Evworth agreement, which I believe is following. This morning, my understanding is that there was a meeting with the Virginia City Council. They would like to stick to the original 3-year agreement. So I have been notified by Britt, their city administrator, that the City of Virginia wants to stick to their original 3-year agreement that they are putting before you. So the part about the 1 year is no longer applicable.
And the 3-year
3-year, that is.
states that they are the sole provider of.
That is what they are asking for. You have the agreement in front of you.
Can you just clarify the sole provider of?
Chad, you were involved in part of this. You're an activity director. Would you like to, from your viewpoint?
Sure.
I don't want to put you on the spot.
No, that's fine. That's
Can I just ask one quick question? So.
I'm not going anywhere.
The agreement that's in our packet states the hours to be 5 to 3.
500 to 300.
500 to 350, correct? And that no longer
And what was,
is applicable.
Full numbers goes back to the.
Okay.
and that was not on the agenda.
And that wasn't on the agenda. Okay, but let's let Chad give us some
The City of Virginia would like us to house both of our high school hockey teams full-time in the City of Virginia. So that would mean all practices, all games, with the exception of a couple if another team from the cities or wherever specifically requested to use the Hippodrome for a game, and that does happen occasionally. So that's what the City of Virginia essentially is asking for.
And I will just add, I have gotten contacted by people on this from both sides of town that they want to play at the Iron Range, the Iron Trail Convention Center.
You haven't heard from the figure skaters who have no ice time at all in Virginia, because it depends on what the hockey team doesn't use. I'm just telling you what I'm hearing.
Okay.
And I think this is, you know, this was an issue, as we all know, for when we went out for a bonding referendum and asked the taxpayers, both of the former districts. This was an issue when we went for a consolidation referendum that passed by a very slim margin in the former Evworth Gilbert district. And on many occasions, I've heard the administration of our district say, and I think Noel might confirm this, that our intent is to split hockey between Virginia and Evworth.
And Director Gilbert, I did publicly say that. I'm speaking for myself alone here. My hope was that we would use both facilities for another year because there's a lot of reasons why you would maybe want to do that. However, you don't own either arenas. Both cities are making their pitch to you. I guess maybe what I would suggest is on the Virginia side, since we just heard this morning, is to let us talk to the city of Virginia. We don't know what the discussion was. Let us talk to them and listen to them and bring this one back to the board for consideration, at least the Virginia one.
And that makes sense. I am a little disappointed when the activities committee met over 2 months ago and gave directive to, we saw the proposals at that time, and the committee asked to, bring it back to the cities.
And we did.
But then it comes on the agenda before there's any sort of a handshake deal, obviously.
Okay.
Do we have?
My disappointment in this is that, like everything else, done the day of, and it changes things. I'd make a motion that we table this.
Wait, do we already have a motion on the floor or not?
I was going to retract my motion.
See, that's why.
Okay.
Motion a second, and I was going to table too, but you go ahead.
Well,
Both of them, the Evworth agreement and the Virginia?
no, I just want to, I'm making a motion that we table item number 5 with the city of Virginia. Is there a second?
Yeah, I will.
Yes.
So there's a motion by Tim, second by Polly, so that we can get further information about what happened today. Is there any other discussion?
Well, we do have Evworth and Virginia representatives here tonight. I'd just like to add, Virginia has gone as far as putting our logo in the ice. Has the Hippodrome done anything? I mean, is there a green, anything in that building, or is it all yellow?
In that, with that discussion, it's been maroon gold since, Evworth Gilbert combined, and it never changed to black and gold. It's been maroon and gold pretty much the whole time.
One thing about that, on that point, I've had discussions with the city of Evworth, and they're willing to put a Wolverine mid-ice if we commit to the season.
That's all I wanted to hear.
Very good.
At the MEC, they have the sponsor at center ice, correct?
Yeah. Shouldn't be really even.
Is there any other discussion?
Yeah, I think we all received an email from an individual about this subject and about where the hockey games will be played or would like to be played. And, a survey that was taken as well of the athletes, at least from boys hockey standpoint, on where they would like to play. And I hear that, and that's important to me. But I did reach out because I did reach out to the head coach and for more discussion, and I have not received a response. And this was, I think it was Saturday. That I had reached out, and I haven't received a response. So I would support tabling this discussion as well.
Any other discussion?
And we also, a few meetings ago or months ago, received a letter from the mayor of Evworth and the city council So, there's two sides to the story.
With no further discussion, all those in favor of tabling item number 6.5 signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. That was a 6-0 vote. Item number 6, consider approval of facility use agreement between the City of Evworth and Independent School District 2909 Rock Ridge for 2022-2023.
I would move to table that one as
I think we have to. They're dependent upon each other. Yeah.
Okay, you guys aren't good poker players, are you? We have a motion by Stacy, second by Tom.
I don't think this is a good idea. I mean, to table this, the city of Evworth has bargained in good faith. They've given us a proposal that we've sat on for a long time. I don't think it's right to penalize them because we can't come to terms with another city.
I guess in that discussion, I haven't heard a whole lot about any of these discussions that have been taking place at the athletic committee meetings.
There haven't been any. That's the problem.
Yeah.
We haven't met since early June.
But then isn't this one, this rental or ice time dependent upon how much
Exactly.
we are going to?
Get it?
Well, we'd be committing to 150 hours. We'd be able to buy more ice time if we need it.
18,750. That's the amount. They might end up getting more if we give them more ice time.
And there's a clause in there that we can purchase additional ice time if we need it.
The
$125 an hour.
the one question I have is,
Okay, in that case.
so out of a 25 game, it's not all of them are home. How many games would be played between the girls and the boys in the Evworth Arena?
A hypothetical situation that we came up with would be for the girls to start practicing on, I believe it's October 31st in the Hippodrome, and continue practicing in the Hippodrome until approximately December 2nd, and playing a total of, I believe it was 6 games in the Hippodrome between the month of December and November. Then the girls would switch back to the Iron Trail, or switch to the Iron Trail. The boys would switch to the Hippodrome. They would finish out the month of December with practices and games, playing, I believe it was 5 games and right around 13 practices. That took us to, I believe it was 138 hours. That would leave 12 hours left over out of that 150 that we would use in the front end of the season for preseason ice time. Starting January 1st, with the hypothetical situation, all activities would be in Virginia for hockey, boys and girls, starting January 1st, with the exception of any major conflicts on game nights that might occur, that we would not be able to accommodate with 2 games at the same night. At that point, we would purchase any ice time from the Hippodrome that we may need.
So this basically, the way I see it is Evworth has said they would like to have this agreement and they're happy with it. And you're looking at boys and girls hockey, roughly the games start the 3rd week in November.
Earlier for girls.
Second for the
Well, the girls are a little bit earlier, but they would be done and everybody would be in Virginia starting the new year.
Yep, that would be the plan with the.
Okay.
Was there any discussion, because I was talking out some possible solutions to this issue. Was there any discussion about, at the athletic committee level or with any discussions you've had about like maybe conference games being played at the new arena and non-conference games being played at the HIP? Was there any discussions or?
Looked at things in that manner because last year and jumping back and forth between the arenas is inconvenient and not really what the coaches want to do. So if we could just keep everything consistent and go like that. That's really what the coaches would prefer to do if we do go with a split.
And it's simpler.
And it's simpler. You're not constantly transporting equipment back and forth between the two places.
Yeah, that makes sense.
There are only 3.
Did the city submit this agreement with the knowledge or the understanding or the premise of what hockey time or ice time or rental time Virginia was offering?
I don't believe there was any communication between the two entities as far as number of hours.
Okay, because if Virginia had less hours, that would give Evworth more hours, I mean, if it worked out that way. We've already changed from 500 to 350 hours in a comparable amount.
That's what we're proposing, going from 500 to 300. That
I know.
50, that's been rejected.
That's what I'm saying, and it's not that anymore, so there's some hours in here that may or may not be lost by one or the other arenas. So I think right now.
So we have a motion, if I am correct, to table this and not approve the City of Evworth's facility use agreement with us. Is there any other discussion?
Just a little bit of a discussion, because it's not just the hippodrome, it's the fields, the golf course, and other things. I just want the city of Evworth to have all the information when they make this offer to us, how it might affect the hours at the hippodrome or not.
I think it's only fair to table both and have a discussion in a working session where I would hope that we would bring all the, players to the table to have the discussion. The athletic directors, people on the athletic committee.
Just one more question. Is the ice time comparable per hour in both or not?
This is, I believe, and this is just what I've heard, I'm not exactly sure, I believe the ice time in Virginia is $175 an hour.
Okay, in Evworth, they're proposing so far $125 an hour. Okay. All right.
Okay, with no further discussion, we have a motion to table item 6.6. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
No.
Aye. And Polly?
Yes, table. Yes.
Table? Okay, so it is 4 to table. If somebody has a room for me to sleep in outside of Virginia, I'd appreciate it tonight. It's probably not going to be taken too well in Virginia, that.
Are you whining?
Yes. So Matt and Tim and the rest, it's been tabled until the next meeting. Okay. Consider approval of secondary school for Virginia, Evworth, Gilbert, 22-23. Motion? Motion by Tom, second by Stacy. Discussion?
Yeah. There's so much material here this time, and I just noticed one thing. On page 36, I think we need to take Jeff Carey's name out of there. Maybe there's other typos. I haven't had a chance to dig into it. I'm sure there are little adjustments that can be made like that. And some of the policies, I noticed that we have them all written out on the senior high one, and we just refer to them on the elementary one. I don't know why that is. I know they can all be found on the website, but I'm just going to have to abstain because I haven't been able to digest them.
Is there any other discussion?
I just had I just wrote down some notes about the handbook, because we've been talking ongoing about, discipline issues and things. So do we have detention rooms and an ISS room in all of our buildings? Like high school particularly?
Yes.
Okay, so if a kid drops an F-bomb or is disrespectful to a teacher and they get an hour detention, because I saw that, that's potential. So it happens in the classroom. Do they stay out of the classroom and in the office until that classroom hour is over?
It depends what the context is. Some principals have detentions. This may not be what the kid would get for saying what you just used for an example. Sometimes detentions occur during the noon hour. Sometimes they occur before, after school. Sometimes principals have the ISS right in the office somewhere because they have the ability to do that. Sometimes they have the ability to pull the kid right away, take them out of the classes. But sometimes they can't because of other things that are happening in the building, and then they will assign a date or a consequence for the student later on. That make sense?
It makes sense. I just know I've heard teachers feel, unsupported because the student goes down to the office and ends up right back up in the classroom. And I know that's been an issue in the past. And then I noticed too in there that if they're removed from class, there's no participation in school activities, and that includes sporting events. So if I read that correctly, if a student gets removed from class, they are not going to be able to participate in that evening's school events if there is a game or any of those types of things.
That will be difficult for some parents and some kids, but we expect more of our athletes. The principals all looked through the book. The activity directors looked through this book, and if a kid is messing around in school during the day and they're not listening to teachers, why should they be allowed to play in a game that night? That's kind of what they were thinking on it.
And I would agree with that. I mean, I think that, I just think it's important that we say that and let people know that. And because I know a lot of people just look at the handbook and they sign the back and send it back to school.
Yeah.
And so I just want to make sure people are aware if your kid's getting kicked out of class and, and they're involved in any extracurricular activities, whether it's Knowledge Bowl or another, a sport, they're going to be sitting out of that.
And part of what you're reading is the principals, activity directors, and talking to the staff, they would like to set a higher standard for our kids in activities so that they realize it's an honor, it's a distinction, they're representing us, they're representing the community, the school, and they need to take that seriously and act and behave themselves. I think that's reasonable to ask that of our kids.
And then there was some information in there about truancy as well. Do we have truancy officers in the high schools that are addressing those types of?
Truancy officers.
Okay.
We have check and connect programs in all the buildings where kids who have the highest absentee issues that they're checked on every day. They're called upon every day that they don't show up. Somebody's following up every single time to cut down the number of times that they're missing school. Because everybody knows here that if kids miss school, it's all bad. Especially if it's a high frequency where they're missing, I would say on pace to miss more than 10 days a semester. That's a lot of school days to miss. So, and then we also have a process with St. Louis County that kids go through if they exceed a certain number of truancies.
So there's reports run on truancies.
Correct.
Frequently. And this is, the check and connect is what Lisa Perkovich is involved in.
Yes.
And that's kind of a separate entity from school. Like it's not a school-run program, it's run through the county, isn't it?
Yes, it is, but we talk with them a lot. And so we know who's missing and they tell us which kid is struggling.
Okay. All right.
So are these bolded areas, are these additions or changes to our policy when we've got bolding on some of these?
Fortunately, we have a principal here tonight who participated in that, and I asked him deliberately to sit over there for 3 hours so he could talk to the board and answer some specific questions. So I'm going to give you Mark Winter to go talk about the process that was went through, the new guy, I don't know if he draws the short straw or how that works, but Mark, what was the process? If something is highlighted in there, what does that mean for the board?
Really, the highlights are nothing in particular. There were very few changes to the secondary policy. Everything was very minor changes, with the note that there are some major changes that need to happen. But those changes couldn't have been settled in a 2-hour meeting of administrators and teachers. Dress code being one of them, potentially. It's very ambiguous. What skimpy clothing is to me may be something different to other people, and that is the verbiage, and it's the district policy. So those are things that really are going to have to be researched and looked at throughout the school year. And committees, bring in parents, bring in students, and really dive in deep to those types of things. Behavior matrix is another one that needs a good look at, just to make sure we're all on the same page, especially as we move into the new building.
And that's what I was referring to, because on page 22, you've got infractions and first, second, and third offenses. And I don't believe that they align with what our policies say. We revamped our policies when we became Rock Ridge. And what I remember, we took out a lot of the detailed, what is the penalty for this and that. And if you've changed it to this, and it's, I agree with that. I think teachers and principals need specific things, and parents and students need to know the expectations and what the ramifications are going to be. So when the board changed it to more general, vague language, I'm glad that we're thinking of going back to specifics so everybody knows what's expected. So in those committees, whether it's policy committee or policy committee, I think needs to revamp these discipline and all these harassment, bullying, hazing policies. Thank you. I'm glad to see this.
And I might be wrong when you're talking being kicked out of a classroom. I remember talking to a coach, and I apologize, I can't remember, but last year, one of the coaches would not even let the student practice. So, because each sport can actually have something, raise the bar a little bit, and the student was pretty well, his manners changed after that because it was the day before a game, and I think they also have a policy, if you don't come the day before the game, you can't play. So it was kind of a...
Yeah, I believe that we should have a common policy, and it shouldn't be different you shouldn't be held to a different standard if you're playing football as opposed to if you're playing tennis.
Agree.
You'll notice we all have our complaints, and I'm looking at students wearing hats in school. I think that's disrespectful completely. When you walk in the door, the hat should come off, and it shouldn't go back on until it goes out.
Wait, they can now?
No, they can, depending on the class they're in, the teacher they have. You look today in church, and kids wearing hats, I think it's very disrespectful. They have to learn this in school, or they're not going to learn it at all.
But I've seen adults wear hats too in the school and auditoriums and meetings, so, no, they're both wrong. I'm with you. Hats off in the school, everybody.
I've been to school.
When will this go to print? We're only going to have about 50 changes for you.
School year starts soon.
I think Polly made a good point, though. If Jeff Carey's name is listed in there, we need to make that adjustment.
Easy fix.
Yeah, and again, we refer to them in the elementary. We just give the policy, but we spell them out with a lot of paper in the senior high one. I mean, why don't we just refer to them in the senior high one too, instead of using all that ink and paper?
Very good. Any other questions?
Just complaints.
Just complaints. Huh?
Welcome to your first board meeting.
Right.
Keep in mind, and for those folks watching, the vast majority of the kids we have are really well behaved. They follow the rules, they do what's expected to do. And student survey, everybody, for example, thinks all kids are vaping. They're not. 80% of our kids think everybody's vaping. It's only 10%, 5%. It's not. Regardless of what you're hearing, sometimes the vast majority of our kids, they're well behaved, they're following the rules, and they're going to be great citizens, and they're awesome people.
Agreed.
Super. Thank you. Welcome to the Rock Ridge. Thank you. All those in favor of approving the student handbook for the secondary schools of Virginia and Evworth Gilbert signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Abstain.
We have 5 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention. And Polly, thank you. I'm getting dry here. Consider approval of elementary school student handbook.
So moved.
Support.
We have a motion by Stacy, support by Brandy. Is there any discussion? Any discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oppose?
Abstain.
So we have 5 yes, 0 no, and 1 abstention. Polly, Director Sorkin. Consider to sell 1 diving board and fulcrum to Dave Steckner for $250 and to sell 1 diving board and fulcrum to Kyle Donnelly for $250. Each party will be responsible for removing the diving boards and fulcrum. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Support.
Motion by Polly, support by Brandy. Is there any discussion?
I'd just ask, I mean, are the diving boards for sale, or is this someone sees something, they can come in and say, I'll give you $10 for it?
We can't use the diving boards.
Right, but I mean, are we just,
You can't use them. I think it's a good, to take it out of there just in case some kid
Yeah.
decides to do it.
someone didn't want to pay $500 a piece for them, I agree.
Okay.
You're right, Director Schulberg. These are 2 individuals who have contacted me independently. They said each one of them wants 1 diving board. We have not offered these for sale to the general public. So we're just bringing it to the board. As far as what you want to do, you have so much stuff that it's impossible to have constant sales. But if you would like us to do that, we can. We're just bringing these because, like we have with all the others, if they say, I want to buy something, it's like the flagpole in Gilbert. We didn't put that on eBay. This is just what 2 individuals have said they want. So it's up to you as far as whether you want to do it. The activity directors, the swimming coaches, they're all telling me, we do not need these. They can go right away. We can't dive in that pool anyway. So we do not need them.
Good point, Matt. Is there any other discussion? With no further discussion, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried unanimously. Consider approval of contract from KY Interpreter for sign language interpreting services from July 1st, 2022 until June 30th, 2023. Is there a motion?
So moved.
We have a motion by Director Sorkin, support by,
Or did someone else support it already?
Nope.
nope,
Sorry.
support by Director Schultz. Is there any discussion?
Has the district looked for an interpreter in the area? Have you advertised for that position?
Excellent question, Director Tamero. This person is extremely difficult to find. These are the most difficult of all. Usually they're associated with special ed services, delivery. We need to use this company. If there were somebody here in the area that we are aware of, we'll love to hire them. We've tried, we've had different people who are locals who have done this, but we need to have Plan B ready to go if we don't have a local person here.
Are we required to have a licensed interpreter? That's what I'm curious to.
Yes.
Over the years, we've had paras that were learning as they were teaching.
Based upon the unique situation of any individual child and how the IEP is written, if we have a licensed individual there, that is always who we're going to recommend, and they're capable of doing it. There have been times, however, where we have not had a licensed individual and we've had to rely on other means, and the parents have been okay with that. and almost certainly we'll be doing that again, Director Tamaro.
And to answer Tom's first question, did we advertise for this?
Yes.
There's no one around here, we know that.
Well, you asked the question, and we advertised.
He said yes.
Okay.
Okay, is there any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Consider approval of resolution relating to the election of school board members and calling the school district general election. Is there a motion?
Make that motion.
Support.
By Brandy, second by Stacy. Is there any discussion? Without any discussion, all those in favor signify.
Resolution.
Huh?
It's a resolution.
Oh, I'm sorry. It's a resolution. So we'll do roll call. Director Schultz,
Aye.
Director Lotiger,
Yes.
Director Tamero,
Yes.
Director Schulberg,
Aye.
Director Sorkin,
Yes.
and Director Reardon votes aye. Passes unanimously. Item number 7, the next regular school board meeting will be Monday, September 12th, 6 PM here at Rock Ridge Administrative Building. Our last,
612, didn't we, or
that-
Gilbert Marketing, I thought was added.
Yeah, just real quickly.
oh, I apologize. I apologize. Yes.
Real quickly, the reason I asked that to be on the agenda was that I understand we don't have a commercial broker, real estate agent, and I'd like to make it a formal motion that we solicit one, posting, advertising in trade journals, getting lists from wherever we can, because we don't really have one, and that's not Noel's job. He shouldn't be a realtor, and I think we need a commercial one. If we are serious and we are in good faith marketing these things, we need that. So I just want to make that into the motion, that we actually take that formal step to say we are going to secure a professional one. Just one more thing. I don't know if you've been advertising in our buildings in maybe just locally. I don't know how far out you've gone. I don't know what developers you may have contacted. I know it hasn't been listed in LoopNet. LoopNet is the go-to commercial site for commercial buildings. I mean, there are exchanges. There's a commercial exchange. There's all kinds of places and all kinds of publications. And that's, you really shouldn't have to spend the time doing that.
If you have a Sunday edition of the Minneapolis Star and Tribune on page A3, both of the ads for both of the buildings are right there. Big for everybody to see. Individual has contacted me. I'll talk to them. It is true. I'm not a real estate broker, but I'm turning into partly of one. We are going to have to put together a packet of information, 5 to 10 page document that we can give to people who are interested in listing the building or who are interested in developing the building. So we will do that. That is glaringly apparent to me. We're going to have to do that in addition to just simply listing it somewhere. But I don't want to mislead anyone. The geography is wrong because of the location of it. That's no disrespect to the residents of Gilbert, but we do not have, it's not a growing population area. This is a very difficult building to sell. We will do our best with it. You do not have brokers lining up behind me, waiting and clamoring to get the listings. In fact, you have 0 lined up behind me, clamoring and waiting to get the listing. So we're going to have to solicit and market and find one. That's what we're going to have to do.
So that, I mean, is that to say that, yes, we are going to formally solicit, market, look for, post and advertise? We don't we don't hire an electrician to do plumbing, so we need a commercial, they've got contacts, they know what.
Well, it sounds like Noelle's been doing that.
Please don't interrupt me. They will put together a lot of that information because that's their job. I know we've gathered some already. You've done a good job in getting all these reports for some of these. Like Richard Pierce came here and he's got a group that's, working hard to put some package and get a developer together. But they're not the only ones that might be interested in it. And so we haven't made that motion yet. And I'd like to make it formal, so we do that. We don't just put ads in the Minneapolis paper. We go looking for a person to fill a position.
I'll second that for discussion.
I'm sorry, Matt. What exactly is your motion? So that and Stacy can have it, because we're talking about advertising, we're talking about marketing, we're talking about realtors, so please spell it out.
Just as a school district or any organization goes and looks for a teacher, a social.
Well, here, what is your motion about this?
That we go through the posting advertising procedure to find ourselves a commercial broker.
Commercial broker, okay.
Realtor,
And
to do that job.
what I would suggest is that we retain someone, and I don't know if one of the architects or Kraus would be the appropriate person to help us put together some sort of a request for proposal and to get those out there to developers that do operate in our area, either Northeast Minnesota or Wisconsin, who might be something a little more, and I've seen the ads. Obviously, I think the ads are good. I agree with Director Sorkin that they're just a part of a strategy and trying to get. And I think we'd go a long ways if we put together a request for proposal and distribute it as widely as we could to developers that operate in the region and see what kind of a response we get.
And some of that has already been done, I understand, with the plans and the digitizing things and RFPs. What's a typical commercial developer RFP look like? And I know you've talked to some people recently about that. And so we've done a lot of that already. They've wanted reports about asbestos abatement and all of our other things. A lot of that's together. So we hand that off to the realtor, the broker, and then they do that and they do more. And get it out there.
Okay.
I'm thinking about a request for proposals that would go to the developers themselves.
Right. That's what I'm talking about too. And that's what they would do too. And I'm not sure that they're going to go for a percentage. We might have to consider with a commercial broker a fee structure, whether they, whatever they sell it for. If we sell it for $1, they're going to have something that's worth their time. And that's only reasonable. Everybody else and every other business works that way when you have a service.
Very good. So we have the motion. Is there any other discussion?
The only other thing, if we do that, well, I don't even have a second yet, but if we do that, that would have. Oh, good.
Polly and Matt.
Oh, great.
All right, Polly.
If we do that, how would what would the broker or the interested party be if they don't know what they might get for their money? The fee structure, is it going to be a percentage, 6% of the, 10% of the?
Why don't we cross that bridge after we put feelers out and see what the going rate is to be doing it in our area?
So we're looking for proposals from realtors as opposed to
realtors, brokers,
developers.
It's all three. So, board, yes, I'm perfectly okay with this. We'll give us some time to create this package, to create fee structures so you can see some different examples of fee structures. Then we'll bring that back to you. It's going to take us a while to do this. This is not a simple thing. We don't have somebody on staff to do this. So give us a little time. We'll come back to you with the proposal.
And isn't that what the broker would help you with? So you don't have to do it?
It is, but it's glaringly apparent to me that the brokers are not tripping over themselves to come here and sell the building.
But they have not known about it because we have not posted and advertised in the right places. It was like, well, we've got buildings for sale. Is anybody interested in being our broker? That's not the way you go.
That's why it's a marketing packet we need. We need a marketing packet.
What Noel and the admin team will do is put it together, bring it to us for our approval, and he's being directed to do that with this motion. Is that fair with everybody? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, carried unanimously.
Just a clarification, is that packet that's going to be put together before we start advertising for the broker? Because I don't think it needs to wait. That wasn't clarified.
Well, it sounds like he's gonna put the packet together and it'll come to the board for approval before it gets put out to the public.
Okay.
It wasn't clarified, but.
Very good. Meeting announcements. The next regular meeting will be Monday, September 12th at 6 p.m. here at the Rock Ridge Administration Building. Number 8 is a closed session pursuant to Minnesota Statute 13D.05 subdivision 3D for the board to receive security briefings and reports to discuss issues related to security systems, to discuss emergency response procedures, and to discuss recommendations regarding public service infrastructure and facilities. The disclosure of any private data poses a danger to the public safety and/or compromise of security procedures and responses. During this closed session, the board will be reviewing the safety and security information and plans used for each campus at our or school site, as well as district-wide safety, security procedures, recommendations for safety upgrades, training, any voting to financial issues involving the safety plans, if any, will take place during an open session. So no board action will be done tonight after our closed meeting. I'm looking for a motion to close the meeting.
I'll make that motion.
We have a motion by Brandy.
Support.
Support by Polly. And it is 8:56, and we will take a 10-minute break.
Okay, I'll stop recording.
Okay, we ended this session at 9:29. It is now 9:30. Is there a motion to reopen our regular board meeting?
I'll make that motion.
Tom, you want to open the door?
Motion by Brandy, second by Stacy. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Adjournment, there. Adjournment at 9:31. Motion by Stacy, supported by the chair. Thank you very much.
Things for me to sign?
Yes.